So I'd like to call over the regular meeting of the City Council, September 20th, 2016. We're also going to have the special meeting of the Lake Forest Housing Authority the same date. So with that, I think everyone's here except, okay, we've got all five of us here. So next, let's go to the invocation tonight, led by Associate Pastor Michael Brayton. Welcome. Thank you.
Almighty God and loving Father, we want to begin this meeting by thanking you for the many blessings in our lives, for our families, for our friends, for our health, and for life itself, Lord. Lord, we thank you for the freedom to embrace you in due seasons, and we thank you for loving us exactly where we are. We thank you for the ability to be involved in serving your cities and serving your people, Lord. And we ask that you pour out your Spirit on this community and bring revival to this land. Lord, I pray for the agenda set before the City Council tonight, Lord. Provide guidance and clarity to each person, and give an assurance of what would please you and benefit those that live and work in our city, Father. Be with each member of this City Council and provide insight to them that they may lead with integrity and make decisions that reflect what is right and good. Dear Lord, grant us the humility to always seek your will in what we say and do. In the name that is above all names we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Very true. The Pledge of Allegiance is now going to be led by Councilmember Robinson. If you can please stand.
Just join me in standing. Ready, begin.
And I'm trying to scan the crowd. If the council would not mind moving. Oh, she's here. I don't see her. Oh, there she is. I see her. Okay. All right. We are ready to roll then. So, Madam Clerk.
Agenda Item 1, Proclamation proclaiming September 26, 2016 as Logan Dooley Day in the City of Lake Forest, submitted by City Clerk.
If you can cast your votes. Or, yes, motion first.
Move approval.
Second that.
Yeah, I have done this before. So let's cast our votes.
That motion carries unanimously.
All right, if Miss Nancy Dooley could join me at the dais. So, as you probably know, we have an Olympian. Her son, Logan Dooley, was an Olympian. He grew up here in Lake Forest. And do we have a mic? Can I run with this mic? All right, we'll start all over. So Logan Dooley, Nancy Dooley's son, grew up in Lake Forest and was an Olympian in this last Rio Olympics. And the event that he competed in was trampoline. And trampoline, he is the top-ranked, help me out.
He has the highest score of any American in the Olympic Games in trampoline so far in history.
There you have it. So if you didn't notice, we just voted for Logan Dooley Day to be on his birthday, which is September 26th. So, let me just read this. Whereas Logan Dooley, resident of Lake Forest, competed with skill and dedication in the 2016 Summer Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Lake Forest does hereby commend and congratulate Logan Dooley participating as a member of the 2016 USA Gymnastics team and officially proclaims Monday, September 26th, 2016 as Logan Dooley Day here in the city of Lake Forest. And if you don't mind, tell us a little. Logan's not here, so is there a reason for that?
Well, Logan is on tour right now with the Kellogg's Tour of Gymnastics Champions. It's a major, spectacular production of all gymnastics Olympians from this year and a few from previous years. They will hit 38 U.S. cities in the next 3 months. And he's already exhausted. But anyway, he is on his way right now from St. Louis to Phoenix, Arizona, where their show will be tomorrow night in Phoenix. And they will crisscross across the country and hit 38 cities. Los Angeles show is on the 24th. I think both shows on that day are sold out. It is a very popular and very spectacular show. If you have an opportunity to get tickets to go, please do. You won't be sorry. It's spectacular. Anyway, we thank you. We are extremely proud of Logan. He has worked very, very hard. He has been jumping on the trampoline for 21 years. And he has participated in the last 3 Olympics. This is a guy who decided what his passion was, and he never gave up. We appreciate your recognition of that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, before we move to the next item, the city attorney has a report of council closed session that he wants to make.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief report on closed session items acted upon previously. Based on council direction to proceed with the steps necessary for renovation of Village Pond Park, the city has provided the Lake Forest Community Association with a letter requesting their concurrence with the Village Pond Park renovation plans. This letter was sent as required by a 1976 agreement between the city and the Lake Forest Community Association, requiring that both parties give concurrence on any changes to the pond and the park. As noted in the letter and pursuant to council direction, the city will proceed with the steps required for renovation of Village Pond Park upon receiving concurrence on the plans from the Lake Forest Community Association. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So that leaves us to the report from the Student Liaison. Welcome, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Council. My name is Joseph Suri, and I will be your new 2016 and 2017 Lake Forest City Council Liaison. I am thrilled to share with you throughout the school year all the great things that will be happening at El Toro. The school year has just started and is going to be filled with great events and fun activities. But first, let us talk about the summer ETASB had. Starting with our new Director of Student Activities, Chris Nguyen. He is a fun, energetic, and spirited activities director who came to us from Villa Park High School. He plans on taking El Toro's already amazing spirit to the next collegiate level. Following the arrival of Mr. Nguyen, ET headed up to UC Santa Barbara for the Orange County Leadership Camp, also known as OCL. The camp was filled with fun leadership workshops and competitive tournaments such as volleyball, in which our Charger ASB managed to come in second place out of 50-plus schools, which is a great accomplishment. Another great thing that happened at ASB camp was getting an honorable mention for the Darrell Stillwagon Award, an award won by only the finest ASB in the county. The honorable mention was only presented to 2 other schools out of the 50 that attended, so we are all very pleased with the outcome. Fast forwarding to our school year now, and the fun has already started. Last Friday, we held our very first Pep Rally of the year, which was themed El Toro, the happiest place on earth, based from Disney. And it was a great success. Following our Pep Rally, ET Football had their first home game of the season, of the preseason, and it was against the Sora High School, and it was also a great success. Although we didn't win, it was a great game, and the Sora Titans won 25-21. But that did not stop our Chargers from winning the SoCal Sideline Student Section of the Week, meaning our Charger Freak Show Student Section was the #1 in all of Southern California. After the football game, El Toro hosted our annual Charger Mania dance. The dance was a huge success, with us selling an ET breaking record of 1,000-plus tickets and profiting over $3,000. All of ET's other sports are still in preseason and are training very hard to make sure that when season begins, they will be ready to bring home all the wins. So other big news that are happening at El Toro right now is the freshman ASB elections. This is where the freshman class will elect 4 freshmen to represent them for the rest of the school year. Another upcoming event is to look forward to at El Toro is the Club Rush, which will be happening at Thursday during the extended snack. The following Thursday will be back to school night, and we hope to see all the parents there. That's all for tonight. Thank you all so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you for the rest of the year. And as always, go Chargers.
So before you go, do you like going by Joe or Joseph?
I honestly don't mind. Joe's nice, but Joseph's more professional. So.
All right, Joseph. we'll leave it there.
Have a good one.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll recess the City Council in order to conduct the regular Lake Forest Housing Authority business. So we will call that to order. See, everyone is here. And do we have anything to report out of closed session?
There is no report tonight.
So that leaves us with the public session, if there's any speakers.
None for the Housing Authority.
Okay. Leads us to the consent calendar.
Move consent calendar.
I'll second.
I'd like to pull number 6, number 9, and
I have
number
a point of order. Shouldn't we be doing the Warren Register and then the rest of the consent calendar?
We're on the Housing Authority.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're actually on the housing. I apologize. Then I've been told that. I apologize.
It's,
All right,
it's the orange.
Yes, I realize that. I apologize.
We have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. If you can cast your votes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Any executive director's report?
Not this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Any commissioners want to make comments? And so with that, we will adjourn the Housing Authority and reconvene the City Council. So now we'll go back to the City Council. Green if you're paying attention at home or here in the chamber. So now we are to public comments.
Ken Wolf, followed by Sam Mackey.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ken Wolf, and my wife and I are longtime residents of Portola Hills. I have 4 brief comments to make tonight. So first comment, over the past weekend, I emailed City Manager Dunnick to express my disappointment that tonight's agenda does not include any discussion of the motion made by Councilmember Nick to censure Councilmember Robinson for his candidate statement for the upcoming election. Although I wasn't particularly happy with the answer I got back, I do want to personally thank Mr. Dunnick for his prompt and very thorough response. Second item. It has always been my understanding that Mello-Roos taxes are eliminated only when the bond is fully repaid by residents of the affected community, and that no city official or county official has the authority or the power to eliminate Mello-Roos. And I can assure you that my wife and I have paid plenty of Mello-Roos taxes in the time that we've been living in Portola Hills. My third item. Despite that, in his candidate statement, Councilman Robinson asserts, and I'm going to quote, he says, "I'm endorsed by Supervisors Todd Spitzer and Lisa Bartlett. I'll partner with them to eliminate Mello-Roos in Foothill Ranch, just as we've done in Portola Hills." That's the end of the quote. So my question to you, Mr. Robinson, is what, and I have this in capital letters in my notes, what specifically did you do to eliminate Mello-Roos in Portola Hills? Or is it merely true that coincidentally, while you were in office, the Portola Hills Mello-Roos were fully paid off by the residents? Excuse me. My final comment. I understand that council members are under no obligation to respond to comments or questions posed by public speakers such as myself, but if you wish, you may do so when all public speakers have concluded their remarks. However, since you're seeking re-election in November, Mr. Robinson, I urge you to explain your candidate statement and to do it tonight while voters still have the opportunity to assess your credibility. Thank you.
Sam Mackey, followed by Jim Reichert.
And thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sam Mackey, and I'm the founder of Reptile Rescue Orange County, a nonprofit exotic animal welfare organization here in Lake Forest. Now, we signed a lease in August to open up an adoption center, and since then we've had nothing but no's and basically bullying from the building department, which is why I'm here today to ask for your help. On 8/22, we received a stop work notice from Building Inspector Roger. That notice stated to submit 3 sets of architectural plans to City Hall, obtain permits for full tenant improvements, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, everything, and we can resume work once those permits are obtained. Pretty much the work that we were doing at the time was just cleaning glue off of the floor. There was carpet there before. We wanted to have concrete. And we went here to City Hall to the permit desk and told them, hey, this is what we're doing. They said, okay, that's totally fine. You can continue what you're doing. Only if you're really doing anything major, building or electrical, plumbing, you need to apply for permits, which we're not doing any of that. Also, one thing, on 8/24, we were speaking with our neighbors directly next to us, and they recalled on the 22nd that Roger had gone into their business and was intimidating them because he didn't identify who he was. He just went in, and they weren't sure who he was, and kept repeating that we were doing illegal activity and breaking laws, and really all we were doing is scraping glue off the floor. Not a very good way for us to kind of be welcomed into the community there. So later on the 24th, as we were continuing working on the floor, Roger came back and spoke with our operations director, Stephen Watkins. Roger inquired about the remodel, what we were doing. Stephen explained to him what kind of our plans were, and that a non-load-bearing wall that was open without drywall, we had taken off the drywall because there was a giant hole in it when we moved in, and we just figured we'd replace the whole piece of drywall instead of patching a 3-foot hole. And Roger said once we cracked the seal of the building, we now need permits to replace the drywall. According to the office here, the cost of the architectural plans would be around.
And sorry, we've got to the, but we'll have a little time at the end of this section of the agenda, and I'll address some of your comments. So, thank you for coming tonight.
Jim Reichert.
Hello, everyone. Jim Reichert, longtime Lake Forest resident. Glad to see you.
Welcome.
On behalf of the Lake Forest 2 Board of Directors, I'd like to invite all voters to our City Council Candidate Forum to be held at the Sun and Sail Club on the corner of Lake Forest and Toledo on Tuesday night, October 11th at 7 o'clock. All the candidates will have a chance to give an opening statement. We'll have questions from the audience and closing statements by the candidates. So we hope to see everybody there. And again, the date is Tuesday, October 11th at 7 o'clock. And I hope all the candidates get there early so we can be organized, because we are going to start at 7. Okay? Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Do you have a moderator, by the way? You are. Okay.
We've had no further requests.
Okay, so about the agenda item for censure, I have asked the city manager, and due to the length of tonight's agenda, maybe you can pitch in. I think you said that you decided to move it to next week. Is that, in essence, or the next meeting? Is that, in essence, something to that effect?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, yes, I've had a discussion with the Mayor about their request related to 2 items for the agenda that was requested by members of the City Council. One was the potential censure of Councilmember Robinson. The other is related to Mayor Pro Tem Voigt's service on the Orange County Vector Control District, and I advised the Mayor that it was, unless there was other direction by the City Council, it was my intent to place both of those items on the agenda during the month of October, and very likely at the very next meeting, which would be obviously October 4th.
Great. So, you know, that's probably going to be the time that we discuss that. And then I think I had Sam. Are you still here? I don't see you. Okay, there you are. So I'd encourage you, if you want, I can help meet with city staff and you, or to some effect, we'll try and set up a conference call or a meeting or something to that effect to help resolve your issue and maybe iron out any issues that have resulted from your experience. So thank you for coming tonight and letting us know. Appreciate it. Do you have, if you were able to, did you give any contact information on your speaker form? If you can do that before you, okay. Great, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. One, I'm really glad that Jim Reichert in Lake 2 is doing it. Thank you very much. And Jim is the best moderator. I've seen 3, and 2 of them were really bad, and Jim is really good. So I think we're in fair hands with regard to that. I'm happy you're going to meet with Sam and try to resolve it. and we are able to talk. We're just not able to talk after your comments, because the mayor wants us to wait until everybody talks and then we talk. But we can comment, and we can respond if you ask questions. That was to Ken Wolf, who asked, can we comment? Yes, we can. We also can, later tonight during council comments, go forward with some issues. What we can't do is we can't act on an item that comes up in the public comment. But we certainly can comment on it, as I'm doing now. So thank you all.
And just a point of clarification, it's a council policy that we unanimously passed that said we need to wait until all the speakers are done. So
This is for the reptile rescue. Sam, thanks for coming, letting us know about that. Thanks for what you do for the reptiles out there. People don't realize how many reptiles get stuck into aquariums that they can't fit in no more and don't have good homes. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I, too, would like to get involved with you and come meet with you. And I just want to say thank you for what you do. I'm sorry that there's been a misunderstanding, and I'm sure we'll resolve that.
anything else?
Yeah, just to respond to the public commenter that addressed me. Supervisor Bartlett's office has provided information to, I believe, a reporter. I don't know if a story was written or not, but and has provided the information, I think, that went out to the entire council about the communication that's occurred between council members and supervisors with respect to Melrose. It is true that you can't retire them early before all the funds have been collected to pay for the things that the Melrose was being collected for, but it still takes a vote of the County Board of Supervisors to retire Melrose, and it could sit out there for a little bit longer. It's happened many times in the past, and there are a number of cities and a number of different developments where Melrose was removed early. Again, I didn't say that I single-handedly did it. Any one of us could have developed a relationship and spoken with our supervisors, trying to help on a myriad of issues that come before the Board of Supervisors. That's why I feel it's important that we have good relationships with those elected officials who are above us, because from time to time, you, the residents, are going to need their help. And our responsibility is to try to be an advocate for you. So that's what I've done. You can agree or disagree with the terminology that was used. We're limited to only 200 words in our candidate statements, so I can't be fully explanatory on every single detail of what I do because I'm limited by that number, but I felt like that was important information to include. So thank you very much.
All right. Go ahead.
This is not necessarily the best time for me to try to perhaps clarify what Councilman Robinson said, but I will just take a moment and say that no one can eliminate Melrose. I can call them a million times a day. It is what it is. In this particular case, I have a letter from the controller auditor of the county, in which I am being advised that certain areas in South Orange County, including Portola Hills, ample funds had been paid into the pool. So there was no point in them collecting that anymore. They collected what they were supposed to collect. So you paid every dime, we paid every dime that we were supposed to pay, and some, to the point that he actually requested, the action came from him and his office, his staff, requested the Board of Supervisors to take a vote for those excess funds to be refunded, which they will be refunded in the months to come. So we paid what we were supposed to pay and some, and we're going to get a refund. Nothing was eliminated. Whether that was a poor choice of words or whatnot, everybody can judge the situation for himself or herself. When the time comes, I have documentations as to what I just said, independent documentations. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move to the consent calendar, warrant register.
Do we have any public comment?
We've had no public requests.
I'll move the warrant register.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously.
And the consent calendar. Miscellaneous.
We've had no public requests.
All right, I know I jumped the gun a few minutes ago. Let's go ahead and, I'm polling number 6, number 9, and number 13, please. Thank you.
7.
I'll move the balance.
I'll second that.
If you can cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously.
So agenda item number 6.
Agenda item 6, consideration of the 2017 City Council meeting calendar submitted by City Clerk and removed from the consent calendar by Councilmember Nick.
If I remember correctly, there are 2 dates that are being recommended by the staff that we not hold a council meeting. And we can simply, this is well in advance. We have plenty of time at this very moment, at this very time, to adjust accordingly. If they happen to fall on a holiday or whatnot, we can meet before, we can meet after, but eliminating one of 2 meetings in any given month, that simply means what? Meeting 50% of the time. I really don't, I mean, there's a lot of work here to be done. We're lucky if we can get it done meeting twice a month. Deliberately making it to once a month in 2 occasions in any given year is just too many, in my opinion. So I realize I may not have the vote, but in good conscience, I cannot do this. I'm here to do a job, and I simply cannot do it when I'm not here. I can do some things. Some things require me to be sitting here on this chair. That is why I proudly can tell you that I'm the only council member who's been sitting here on this chair every single time for the last 4 years, ever since I was sworn in. I've been sitting here every single time in flesh and blood. I will continue to do that so long as I can. Thank you.
As a follow-up to Councilman Nick's comments, with which I concur, I did a study. I think I did it yesterday, or maybe I did it this morning, and I looked at the city council meetings in Orange County, well, south of the 55, to see how we compare to other councils. There's nobody that has the longer meetings than we do. And tonight, get your pillows out, because we're going to be here at least till 11 o'clock. Sometimes our meetings are so long we go past midnight. Our meetings are so, it's like a joke from the Johnny Carson show. Our meetings are so long that, but that's the truth. One time, they went 438 minutes. Incredible amount of time. So we just have really long meetings. We're longer than Mission Viejo. We're longer than Rancho. We average over 200 minutes each night. So there's no way on earth, given that we have the longest meetings now, that we could afford to do away with 2 meetings. Then we'd be even longer meetings. So I know Mr. Nick's concerned with us doing right. I'm just concerned with us getting out of here before 11:30. If we collapse 2 the way we go, for good or for bad, we'll never get out of here at all. So I'm in favor of keeping those 2 meetings and asking the city manager or the mayor or whoever's doing this, let's come up with some other dates, maybe the Wednesday, or if the Wednesday doesn't work, the next Tuesday or something, but I can't imagine killing 2 when we already have so many long meetings.
I am not betraying a confidence. I think you and I talked about this agenda item, and you also said we have the shortest meetings, too. We have the longest and the shortest meetings.
That's true. I didn't, it'll be in the patch tomorrow for those of you who like data, but that's true. The other thing that's true, just to throw it in, is that Stephanie in the city clerk's office here does the best job in Orange County. You cannot go to any other city's website and find September's minutes available to you. You can barely go to any other city and find August's minutes available to you. No other city clerk in Orange County, well, of 12 or 13 cities that I checked, were you able to actually get up-to-date minutes. That's why my study only had 2 other cities, because nobody else had anything past July. So, yes, we have the shortest and the longest. That's even worse, in my mind, than saying that we only have the longest. I mean, I don't think that gets solved by getting rid of 2 meetings. Kudos to the city clerk. Really, we number 1 in Orange County in terms of getting those things out to the people.
So I guess I was just going to say, if we have the shortest and the longest, I think to me it sounds like it's cyclical. You know, tonight we've got I think some items that have been agendized from us. So I think I'd be okay with us canceling them. But if there's a need to, scheduling another date for them, because like we said, we have some of the shortest meetings too. So I think sometimes in the summer we do have shorter meetings. So I would be open to canceling them now, but if city staff feels that we have a necessity to need a meeting, I'd be open to that too.
Well, in that case, why don't we just cancel the whole thing and let them call us when they need us? We promise people we're going to do right by them. We cannot do right by them if we are not here in flesh and blood. I mean, I understand. Instead of canceling, let us just reschedule them to a later or earlier day, and if there is no business, we can always cancel them then ahead of time. We don't have to cancel things a year ahead of time. Let's plan on them a year ahead of time in case we need them. If we don't need them, fine, we can cancel them then.
So, an amended thing, I think that I like the idea that it would give the city manager the discretion. If the meeting before the thing, we can fit some of the stuff that he would be on the next meeting. That's the city manager's discretion, whether to say that we're overloaded, let's push forward and we get another date, or let's just put down there for his discretion. Right now.
We don't have that discretion to give, Scott. We don't have that discretion. You're giving some.
We do. We put together the agenda anyways.
Scott, people put us here to do a job. It is not our discretion to give that. Well, you can cancel a meeting if you want to. We gotta be here, and let us be here a day before or a day after. And if best case scenario, there's nothing to do, and I can't imagine that. But best case scenario, there's nothing to do. We can always cancel.
Councilman Nick, I understand what you're saying, but the fact is that we give the discretion to the city manager and allow him the discretion.
Well, how would you feel if I were to move, as I tried to do a couple of years ago, if I were to move that council members do not get paid for any session that they are not here in flesh and blood? How would you like that? That means you're not going to get paid for those. And will you be willing to?
I think we're getting a little crosstalk, so let's stay on topic here.
I am on topic, Andrew. All I'm saying is we are getting. I'm not getting paid. I don't collect a salary, but you guys are getting paid to be here, and you are giving yourself the day off. I don't understand how that can't be. Well, you're not your own boss. They are your own boss. They are your boss.
Tuesday, July 4th is a holiday, a national holiday, celebrating the independence of America. Now that day.
You don't need to tell me that. You don't need to belittle me. I know that, Scott.
I didn't know that. And
You
there's
didn't know
no-
that I knew that?
There's nobody
Having
that
been
would
here-
rather-
All right, okay.
Scott, don't say,
Let's,
we're not children, Scott. I
let's-
know what 4th of July
Let's settle
is.
down. Let's settle down.
All I'm saying is,
Settle
we
down.
can, no, I am calm. I am very calm. Scott alludes to that. I don't know what 4th of July is. I know what that's childish. It's not high school. All I'm saying is, if July 4th doesn't work, and it wouldn't, and July 3rd perhaps wouldn't work because it's July 3rd, well, we can do July 5th. We can do July 6th. I don't understand how else, I don't know how else to say this. You are getting paid for being here. So be here.
There's nobody that'd rather have you in the city council minute instead of beautifying and cleaning up campaign signs in the city of Lake Forest than me.
No, let's
Scott, please don't say that. I almost
So let's-
sued you and you said not to. Let them, please.
What, you
don't,
say
don't,
we need,
don't
all
belittle
right,
the
we're going
co-
to take a little recess if we can't get this figured out.
Can we
here.
just
Yeah, one of the reasons that our meetings go so long is because we take recesses. If you hold that thought, why don't we make a timeout? Why don't I'll make a motion that we ask the city manager and the mayor to come up with a substitute date for each of those.
I second that. Let's
And if, in the event that we suddenly have nothing to do, that he could cancel it in advance, but let's have it on the books so we're ready and prepared to go there.
That's what I'm trying to say, except everything I say
Instead of
somehow gets...
canceling and hoping that we renew it, let's put it in, and, if it turns out that we don't need it, by all means, I doubt that that would happen, but that way we're there, we build it into the schedule, and if we don't need it, we don't have to have it. So that would be my motion. Do you second?
I second that, of course.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I personally, it really is not a really big issue to me. I think either way, if we need the meeting, we'll have the meeting,
Thank you, Andrew. Thank
which is exactly what we want to do. We want to get the city's business done. So if we have the meeting, we have the meeting. So
It's also nice for people, sure, he can get us together pretty quickly, but you can't get people to know that there's a meeting and get people, so I think it's fairer to the people to have it scheduled than to suddenly call it at the last meeting. Be my feeling.
that's fine by me. So I'll go ahead and support that motion.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, cast your votes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I think we're on number 7.
Agenda Item 7, Contract Award for 2016 Resident and Business Survey, submitted by City Clerk.
Okay, yeah, I pulled the item. I have a couple of reasons for the motion I'm going to make. First of all, cost $42,000. Well, that's not a lot of money on a $42 million budget. But in my family, $42,000 is still a lot of money. So I have to ask myself, what are we going to get for $42,000? For example, for years I've been asking Mr. Dunnick to change the animal control question on there. Animal control question comes there under the police. And when you call it animal control and you put it under police, everybody says, yeah, I'm really happy because there's no dogs going around biting me. So I'm pretty happy. So we get like 92 or 94% people being satisfied. And when we had Pet Day, I saw April Josephson here somewhere. There you are, April. Thank you for Pet Day. When we had Pet Day, I went around and I asked people, I said, at the Orange County Shelter, they kill about half of the animals, 40% of the animals who come in there get killed within the first week. Are you happy with animal services? And interestingly enough, instead of 95% being satisfied, 95% were very unsatisfied with the data. So My second concern, my first concern is cost. My second concern is I'm not sure that we're really getting accurate information. The third thing, which confirms my second thought, is when you read True North, who does the research. If you read their other reports, and I've read about a dozen of their other reports, like at Dana Point or Laguna Hills or Mission Viejo, they're all told that they're amazing. They're the top city, one of the top cities I've ever seen. These are really the highest scores I've ever seen. And of course, they tell us that too. So it sounds like an abuse of the English language. Is everybody amazing? Is everybody the top? Well, if everybody's the top, really nobody's the top. So I think the way they phrase it is designed to come up so that everybody's the top, so everybody signs up for them again. Basically, to pat ourselves on the back. The fourth reason I have for objecting to it is, in theory, if those questions were really asked well, and I thought we had really good information there, we could use that stuff in our planning. Like, what are our needs, what do we need here, what do we need there? And I have to say, of all the stuff I read, which is a lot of stuff that you read, with me, in the discussions that we have out here, you almost never hear or read the words, according to the resident survey, we should have a swimming pool. Now that is, I think, the number one thing that the residents want of everything else. But when you discuss that, you never hear those things. So I'm worried with the cost. I'm worried that the questions really aren't asked all that well, which is why everybody comes out so good. And because everybody comes out so good, that's probably why we really don't use it in most of our deliberations. So, and again, finally going back to $42,000 to pat ourselves on the back. I'm going to pat Scott on the back now. And if he will pat Andrew, and if Andrew will pat Dwight, and if Dwight will pat Adam,
I'm good.
we will have saved $42,000. So my motion is to save the $42,000, pat each other on the back, and say we're doing a good job. That's a serious motion.
So you had a motion?
Yeah, that's a serious motion. I don't want to have the resident survey this year. I want to save the $42,000.
Mr. City Manager, how many years has True North been helping us with surveys in the city of Lake Forest?
True North has been doing this survey since 2000, every 2 years, since 2000.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, also, as we indicated in our report, we started this actually in 1998. There was a different firm that won it at the time. However, the principal of True North, Dr. McClarney, was an employee of the firm, and he started his own company, consequently later competed with other firms and won that contract, and has done that over the course of time since the time that the clerk identified, 2000. In that respect, we have an extremely large amount of longitudinal data about the city's performance. And of course, I think there clearly is value to that survey. We do go through it very clearly. I could point to things that we fundamentally do as a function of what we see come out of that survey. An example was on communication in one particular survey a number of years ago that was not the scores that we wanted to see. We increased our efforts related to that. The next time that survey was done, there was a difference. And of course, as all of the members of the council know, you use that data that comes through the survey when you do a new 5-year business plan, and that is thoroughly discussed at your workshop that you hold with the commissions. And so there is value longitudinally. I do believe that open-ended questions to the community give them an opportunity to identify the issues that they think are important. Some of the other questions are done in the fashion that they are by Dr. McClarney in order to ensure that there's integrity in the longitudinal value of that data. That being said, I recognize what Councilmember Gardner said. He certainly raises points that are certainly important and things that the council may want to consider. But we've been doing this survey for a considerably long time.
Yeah, just briefly, I definitely see value in this survey of both residents, and I think it does give us a good baseline, like you said. If we're asking questions in one area and maybe they should be in another, maybe they could move those around. I don't know. It doesn't really. I trust the staff to be able to professionally manage that. So I'll propose a alternative motion to go with staff's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
Perhaps quickly, Dr. Gardner, given that this will pass 4-1, can I maybe make I don't know if I need to make Andrew a friendly amendment, but I am wondering if we can maybe have you work with the firm to arrive at questions that are not necessarily leading. Questions that, you know what I mean, questions that are really questions, as opposed to leading them to tell you what you want to hear. Can we do that, Mr. Dunick? Can we have Dr. Gardner work with the staff in arriving what questions should be, Mr. Dunick?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, clearly the council can do as it so desires along that line. Dr. McClarney is a recognized expert and testifies in court as an expert as it relates to survey research. He's lectured at the UC Berkeley and a variety of places. I have confidence in his ability to write very unbiased questions. When you do an open-ended question, you're not leading anybody anywhere. And so we do a mixture of both open-ended questions as well as those that ask people to select from an array of choices like strongly agree or disagree. Of course, anyone can write a question that may be, in some respect, I suppose, in the view of one person to be biased or leading, and someone else's opinion it may not be. Clearly, Dr. McClarney has a lot of experience. I know Dr. Gardner has experience. I have a PhD also and have done research methodology myself. So I have confidence in Dr. McClarney, but I think the decision as to that is up to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Dunick. I apologize. I did not mean to disparage anyone or any firm, Mr. Dunick. I was trying to paraphrase Dr. Gardner's take. So where do we take it from here, Dwight?
I'm always open to friendly amendments in this situation. Maybe I'll politely decline.
Yes.
So,
all right, well,
let's take the motion.
All right, let's take.
I think I've moved. You seconded, and if there's no further discussion, let's cast our votes.
That motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Gardner opposed.
Which leads us to agenda item number 9.
This doesn't have to be anything that takes more than a few seconds. I am not for this. I never was for the rezoning, and as such, in good conscience, I cannot support it. It has been debated before. The three gentlemen to my immediate left rezoned the property, and nothing to it. I've already lost that battle, so somebody just go ahead and make a motion.
Well, I'll let the city clerk read the title. That's our...
Agenda item 9, approval of final track map 17963, submitted by Director of Public Works, City Engineer, and removed from the consent calendar by Councilmember Nick.
All right, I'll move the motion.
Second.
No further discussion. Cast your votes.
That motion passes with Councilmember Nick opposed.
leads us to agenda item 13.
Agenda item 13, use permit 3-16-4890 to allow beer and wine sales for off-site consumption at an existing grocery store, 99 cents only store, and determination of public convenience or necessity as required by the California Business and Professions Code in census tracts with an undue concentration of retail alcohol licenses at 26542 Town Center Drive, submitted by Director of Development Services and removed from the consent calendar by Councilmember Gardner. I apologize, Councilmember Nick.
Once again, this shall not take more than a few seconds. This has to do with the three of my colleagues to my immediate left consenting to yet another alcohol retailer in the neighborhood where the state's quota has been met and some. I don't remember the numbers, but it was something like the state said that in that neighborhood, in that tract, we were supposed to have 3, and we already had, 6 or 7. So this would be just yet an additional alcohol retailer. Absolutely does not make sense to me. I lost, Jim and I lost 3-2 on that, as we often do, on things that are not unanimous. This is just a second reading. For the sake of second reading of the same thing by state law, it has to come here before us, I guess. So it's just a matter of recording the same vote. The discussions have already taken place, and as such, if somebody makes a motion, we can record a 3-2 vote and move on.
I just had an additional comment. During that discussion, I wasn't going to bring it up, but since we're pulling it anyway, during that discussion, I had asked the police chief, I believed I had sent him a report, and he said he didn't remember me sending the report, and I said, gee, I'm pretty sure I sent it. He said he didn't remember it. In fact, for the record, I sent it 3 times. So, but it was 2 years ago, and he did get the report. Well, I don't know if he got it. I sent it 3 times. So with that, I'll call for the motion.
Second.
So are you making the motion then?
The vote.
All right, so
You made the motion, I said.
you want to make the motion if he's not making the motion?
You made
No, I was just calling for the vote, not the motion.
the motion?
I thought there was a motion.
I'll move the item.
All right.
I'll second it.
We have a motion second. Just real quick, this item doesn't allow any refrigeration of alcoholic beverages, no single sales, requires a conditional use permit, limited shelf space, and that all requires them to follow the law. The city has the ability to revoke their conditional use permit. This is the first time this has happened in the city, and that's why I'm voting for it. So on that, let's cast our votes.
That motion carries with Council Members Gardner and Nick opposed.
All right, so we made it through the consent calendar in just a little over 1 hour. I think we should maybe get a round of applause. I'm just kidding. All right, so agenda item 14.
Agenda item 14, annual review of development agreements submitted by city manager.
So we'll start with the staff report. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to defer to Mr. Tomaino for the staff's presentation on this item. And I know he apparently has a PowerPoint, but I'm sure this will be a good but short presentation. Thank you, Mr. Tomaino.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. As you know, the city is required to hold a public hearing to conduct an annual review of its development agreements. During the review period, property owners are required to establish good faith compliance with the terms and conditions of the DAs, and this review process is performed with the assistance of the City Attorney's Office to ensure that the developers have complied fully with the terms of the executed agreements. In most instances, and at this stage in the development of the opportunity study area, the provisions triggered in the development agreements are essentially related to grading and construction permits. Given that the projects are advancing consistent with their approved entitlements, one other component of our review process is to ensure that the associated city development impact fees are being paid on a timely basis and as required by the agreements. The annual review covers only the activity occurring during the past 12 months, so last September to this September, and given the various developers and timelines involved, the projects reflect different stages of progress at this point. I'll briefly summarize these for you this evening. First up are the developments at the Auto Center. There are 2 residential developments. The El Paseo development, which is comprised of 147 attached multifamily dwelling units, is now complete. The project includes 11 residential buildings, a pool, a recreation center. The developer pulled all required permits and paid all fees, and is therefore now eligible to receive its certificate of compliance from the city. The other residential development in that area is Camden Square, which continues to progress. Again, given that all entitlement activity occurred during the prior review periods, development agreement compliance includes continuing to ensure the developer pulled all required building permits and pays all required development fees. To date, the developer has pulled nearly all permits required to finalize construction, but they're not yet complete. At this juncture, the Parkside Development, which is located just across the street from the sports park, is in the early phases of construction. The developer is working with the city to process development permits to enable construction of its proposed units. In addition to pulling the required permits and paying fees, the developer also provided advance payment of the traffic signal on Rancho Parkway at the intersection with the sports park. The city, as you know, has also been working with the Irvine Ranch Water District, as the land adjacent to that project will ultimately serve as a site for the city's new Civic Center. Consequently, the city and IRWD have been discussing the Civic Center project, and no additional requirements of the development agreement obligations were triggered during the 12-month review period. Similarly, since the last review, Madison, that developer has not engaged in any other activity, and therefore, similar to IRWD, no additional requirements of the DA were triggered over the past 12 months. Moving on to the other side of the city, during the past 12 months, Meritage Homes began grading and construction of its 5-acre site. The project includes a gated community with 52 homes and a recreation area. During the year, Meritage pulled all required grading permits and paid its fees. Meritage is currently working toward opening its model homes. During the review period, Portola opened the model homes for the 81 single-family residences in the northwest planning area and pulled its permits. Portola also continues grading operations in the southern portion of its planning area. In addition, it's actually, after receiving approval from the City Council for the Senior Affordable Housing Project, is getting ready to undertake that. In terms of new public facilities, Portola also advanced funding for the design cost associated with the 5-acre community park. In December 2015, Portola assigned the southern portion of its site to a developer called Lancy Holdings Corporation. The site Lancy purchased from Portola totals approximately 95 acres and will include multifamily and single-family residences. Lancy has submitted development plans, one for each of the 5 planning areas it owns, and is required to pull all associated permits and pay its corresponding share of the development fees. SBRA also accomplished a number of milestones, including public and private improvements. During the review period, SBRA opened 7 new communities within its master plan development and completed the Borrego Trail, the Oaks Tennis Park, Courtside Park, and the Promenade, which is a very lovely central linear park that connects both sides of the development through a pedestrian bridge above Alton Parkway. The city, as required by the development agreements, applied an inflation escalator to its fee structure. The fee escalator, which is based on the Engineering News Record Cost Index for the Los Angeles area, was calculated to be an increase of 2.4% from last year. The escalator is effective July 1st, 2016. The escalation for the affordable housing fee, which is actually effective January 1st of 2016, was 3.1%. As noted, staff, with the assistance of legal counsel, reviewed the provisions of the DAs and found the developers to be in full compliance with their terms. At this point, this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the City Council. Thank you.
Have we had any members of the public?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I guess I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the council.
Just have a comment similar to the comment I had last time about the CDBG grants. You've got a lot of information here, and but it's all in a narrative. I think if you had a chart there, it would be more useful to me. So sometimes we know how many acres it is, and sometimes you leave it out. Sometimes we know how many homes it is, sometimes it's not. It's all done nicely, but if there was a chart, I'd be sure that I had all the information, because you'd see, here's all the acreage, here's all of this, here's all of that. So next time you do it, although the information's there enough for us to say, great, I'd find it more useful if there was a chart and just, these are the number approved, these are the number built, these are the number of acres, blah, 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 blah. That's my only comment.
Questions?
To date, with the fees that have been collected right now to fee, where we stand, last I heard we were at $2.2 million in public benefit in the construction that's already been collected.
On impact fees?
Yeah.
On the, what number were you giving?
For development fees, for public benefit, that went towards our Civic Center, went towards our...
Sports Park, there was $82 million that went towards the Sports Park. And then we are currently saving money for the Civic Center.
And what currently do we have in the bank for the Civic Center?
Roughly $40 million. And we're collecting as the permits get pulled, weekly, monthly, and the estimated amount will finance the Civic Center project.
And City Manager, I heard rumors, or I had heard through the grapevine that the Brookfield project at our former auto dealership was the best-selling product in the Brookfield market in California.
I can't corroborate that rumor that you've heard. I've not heard that. So I'm sorry, I can't vouch for that, but I'm sure they know what they've been able to do at Brookfield. We know they've built all their product, and we believe that it's about sold out.
The Brookfield is sold out.
Yes, I believe that's the case, but I don't know how fast in comparison to their other developments.
I have nothing further.
All right, I guess my handy-dandy calculator says that's over $120 million of benefit the city of Lake Forest gets in its sports park and civic center to date. That's not like what's the total we're expecting?
Total impact fees are estimated of just under $200 million. That includes all impact fees, just not public facilities financing fees. That's road fees, FCPP fees, all the fees put together, all impact fees coming in from development.
Great. I will move staff's recommendation.
Second that.
Let's take a vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Which leads us to agenda item 15.
Agenda item 15, Site Development Permit 7-16-4945, an amendment to Site Development Permit 12-15-4863 for an alternative development standard to allow an increase of 18 inches to the maximum height requirement for a third-story option to 2 floor plans for the development of 53 single-family units at the Parkside Residential Development, Lot 65-117 of Tract 17707, submitted by Director of Development Services.
So I have a little comment here to start the agenda item off. This item is a public hearing on the call-up of the Planning Commission's approval of an amendment to the Site Development Permit, SDP, approving an alternative development standard to allow an increase of 18 inches to the maximum height requirement for the development, thereby allowing a third-story option for 2 models in the development. This hearing will be conducted pursuant to Sections 2.04.100 through 2.04.130 of the Lake Forest Municipal Code. The City Council's role is to review the amendment to the Planning Commission's decision de novo, meaning at the end of the public hearing, the Council may take action on the amendment to the SDP application as if the application were being heard for the first time. The City Council has reviewed all submitted evidence and is prepared to listen to all evidence and testimony presented during this hearing and to render an impartial judgment based on the evidence before us at this appeal. To ensure an impartial hearing, City Council members are required to disclose the details of any contact or communications related to the appeal that were made prior to this hearing. The City Attorney will assist the City Council in this disclosure process. I think this is the time we allow council members to disclose. I have to disclose that I talked to city staff before the meeting on this agenda item. I don't even think that's disclosable, but I thought I'd go first.
And Mr. Mayor, we can proceed in any order that you deem necessary.
All right, we can start at my far left.
Okay, I have real estate holdings, but I don't hold any Toll Brothers homes. I have real estate investment trusts that I own, but they're in the hospital or healthcare industry, not in the residential industry. I did speak with 3 representatives who they asked to speak to me from Toll Brothers about the needs of housing in Lake Forest. We spent an hour not talking about the project, but talking about the need for affordable housing near the 5 freeway, a very different thing, but we never discussed the project. And I accept no money from developers or developer PACs, so there's no reason that my judgment should be influenced by the money I've accepted for my campaigns.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I've discussed nothing about this project with anybody, so I'm a carpenter by trade. I favor the sound of a skill saw and a hammer, so I'm not opposed to new remodels or new homes, and so the fact that they're building in our city has been a blessing to us, and I'm willing to listen to what is before us.
I met with someone from Toll Brothers approximately a month ago, but had nothing to do with this particular project. Probably similar to Councilmember Gardner's type of meeting. And other than that, I don't have anything else to disclose.
You remind me that I had a meeting with Toll Brothers, too, on an unrelated topic.
I haven't met with them. Not that I did not have the time, although I am pressed for time. I don't need to meet with developers. That is not my job. They can meet with the staff. They can meet with our competent staff. Anything they have to say to me, developers or otherwise, or trash haulers, or you name it. I don't take their money, never have, never will, because I don't want to owe my vote to anybody but you. Now one of my friends is going to jump in and say, hey, you took money from Brookfield for $1,500. Brookfield, a couple of years ago, mailed a $1,500 check to my treasurer in Sacramento. My treasurer was on vacation. His assistant, who did not know my policy, deposited the check in my campaign account. When he and I found out, we refunded the money. As simple as that. So as of today, and as of the moment that check was sent out, I was not and I am not in receipt of one dime from anybody. Period. I do have real estate holdings, real estate portfolio. They have nothing to do with any real estate company that has been before me. Nor really do I have a choice. It's a bunch of mutual funds and trust companies. I don't have any control over those. I just enjoy the return. That's all.
All right, the call will proceed as follows. Number 1, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment on the appeal. Number 2, city staff will present a staff report. Number 3, representatives for the applicant will then present reasons for their application and evidence not previously submitted. Number 4, members of the City Council may then ask questions of either representatives of the applicant or city staff. And we are now ready to proceed. So I will open the public hearing. Have there been any members of the public who wish to speak on this appeal?
We have one request for the developer's representative. The applicant's representative is here if you need him to speak at some time, but I don't believe they had a general need to speak. Just here to answer questions.
So if there's no one else from the public, we'll close that portion of the hearing. We'll go now to staff presenting its staff report and evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll defer to Director Ackerman for her report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This item is a proposed amendment to the site development permit for the Madison at Parkside project, which was approved by the Planning Commission in March of this year for the development of 53 single-family homes. Parkside is a gated community located at the corner of Rancho Parkway and Portola Parkway, currently under construction. The project features 3 residential neighborhoods, a private recreation center, and is served by private streets. The City Council approved the initial entitlements for Parkside in 2015. These actions changed the designation of the property from commercial to residential and allowed the development of a maximum of 250 residential units. The zoning set forth a height limit of 35 feet for the future homes. The site was subsequently sold to Toll Brothers. The initial entitlement of 2015 would have allowed 250 homes, including a portion of those homes to be multifamily. However, Toll submitted a revised tract map, which replaced the multifamily component with the development of 78 single-family detached units in one of those 3 neighborhoods, thereby dropping the total number of homes in the Parkside development to 195. As no precise development plans were presented in 2015, Toll was required to submit subsequent site development permits for each of the 3 neighborhoods for the review of the city's Planning Commission. In 2016, the Planning Commission approved the site development permits for those 3 neighborhoods known today as, within Parkside, known as Arlington, Madison, and Lexington. After construction of the model homes, start of the construction of model homes for Madison, Toll sought to amend the site development permit to provide buyers with the option to add a 3rd story to 2 of the 3 floor plans within this particular neighborhood. The 3rd story would add a bonus room, a bathroom, and a covered deck. In order to accommodate the 3rd story, the applicant also requested an alternative development standard to increase the allowable maximum building height from 35 feet to 36 feet 6 inches. The additional height would accommodate the developer's standard ceiling heights for each floor and still provide the decorative S-style roofing that is used within the project. The Planning Commission, after considering the site plan configuration and street pattern for the Madison neighborhood itself, the articulation of the proposed architecture and building massing, the Commission approves the request to amend the site development permit to allow the 3-story homes for 2 of the floor plans and to also approve the alternative site development standard, which increased the building height by 18 inches. The project has been called up for City Council review and consideration in accordance with the provisions of the Lake Forest Municipal Code, and as the City Clerk mentioned, a representative from Toll Brothers is in the audience tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do you want to go first, Councilman Gardner?
Yeah, I guess my main question is, what is the impact of the 3rd floor going to be on traffic in that area?
Councilmember Gardner, traffic in the environmental document is typically measured by trip generation rates. And so the standard trip generation rate and I'm sure Director Wheeler may have some input as well, for single-family homes is approximately 10 trips per house. And so it's not based on square footage, it's a land use category, single-family detached, and the trip generation that we use to generate the traffic counts is based on that.
Okay. In other words, you don't know the answer.
If we were to rerun the traffic analysis, we would use the same 10 trips per unit as the trip generation rate.
So it doesn't matter that, in other words, a house, are you saying that a house with 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms generates the same trips?
Yes, using the ITE, that's the International Transportation, Director Wheeler, engineers, yes, there's one rate for single family, there's another rate for multifamily.
Yeah, I don't know about the ITE or whatever it is. I know about common sense. It occurs to me that the number of people in a 2-bedroom house, and therefore the number of cars and et cetera, varies as you go up more bedrooms. You're adding more people, you're adding more cars and people. Does that make sense, common sense? That's the question.
Maybe that's a rhetorical question. If that's, do you have another question?
No. So the bottom line. All right, let's go back a step. Forget what the additional modification will do to the traffic. What will the building of it do to the traffic? What's your findings there?
I don't have, Councilmember Gardner, I don't have the environmental documentation that was used when the council in 2015 approved the zone change and the general plan amendment and the initial tentative track maps. All of the environmental analysis and required mitigation was prepared at that time, and that was for a project the size of 250 units.
Yeah, but we now have a different configuration altogether than what they originally got approval for.
Yes, what they have now is 159 single-family homes versus 250 with a mixture of multifamily and single-family.
And you don't recall what the original traffic report said on the original project?
No, council member, I don't.
And you know, and again, Tom would know this better than me, is it LMT or something like that? They used to do traffic reports one way, and then it turns out that wasn't what they wanted, so they decided to do them another way. And there's a new way that they're doing it, POS or LMT or something like that. Is this site being evaluated on the new system or the old system? If you recall, I mean,
I don't recall specifically how this site is being evaluated or when that law changed. But we look at both of those systems now. We've continued with the old way of doing things, which is more of an intersection analysis. The state CEQA laws also include it's vehicle miles traveled. The VMT is the new law, or a new additional way of looking at trip generations. But as Director Ackerman said, the project was cleared for approximately 250 units. They're building 160 units. So therefore, regardless, either way, it's a lot less than what was originally cleared in the project.
I have no further questions at the moment.
So we're here tonight to consider whether they can go 18 inches higher than the limit. Is that a fair way to summarize that?
Well, the project that's been called up is the site development permit that was considered by the Planning Commission, and it amended the original site development permit to allow the third story on 2 of the 3 floor plans and included an alternative development standard to allow the height limit to be increased by 18 inches.
So how many alternative plans have we approved over the course of City Council, Planning Commission last couple of years? Is this like a normal thing, or is this like we're making a special exception for just Toll Brothers here?
Mayor and council members, the Baker Ranch Plan Community, the Portola Center Plan Community, many of the larger plan communities include this process called Alternative Development Standard. Certainly the one the council will recall their approval was the architectural tower at the senior project in the Portola Center project. That exceeded a height limit and actually required an alternative development standard to allow that. The other uses of alternative development standards typically fall within the purview of the Planning Commission because they typically go with the site development permit. So the Planning Commission is the approval body. And so we've had probably 6 or 8 different site development permits as product types evolve. Lexington at Parkside was approved by the Planning Commission, and that's one of the Parkside neighborhoods, and that also included a 3rd story and an alternative site development permit for 18 inches of additional height. The other alternative development standards are primarily within Baker Ranch. They're for reduced setbacks in some of the courtyard products and the innovative little 4-packs and 6-packs, and to allow some cantilevering. But certainly the Planning Commission has approved a number of alternative site development permits over the last 3 or 4 years.
So I know the answer to this question already, but it sounds like you just said a development in the same area, Parkside, already has this same exception.
That is correct. Lexington was one of the other, there's 3 neighborhoods in Parkside. Lexington is the one that's closest to Portola Parkway, and the Planning Commission did approve a 3rd story and an alternative development standard. I should say they approved just the alternative development standard to allow the additional 18 inches. As part of the site development permit, they originally included the 3rd story in those. The difference is with this project, they came in to amend the site plan after the fact, requesting the 3rd story.
So I guess I'm baffled if my colleagues who appealed this could answer, why didn't you call up the Lexington one too, just like this? Why did you think that you thought that one was okay, but this one's not? Is there a difference between these?
I have to tell you that it must have skipped. I'm a very busy man. The Lexington one must have skipped my consciousness. Had I seen it, I probably would have called it up. Not having recalled it, I can't tell you. I don't recall seeing it, so I can't tell you that I approved it and didn't call it up, or I didn't see it and didn't call it up.
Yeah, just in my opinion, it feels like the water's kind of already gone under the bridge. We've allowed this already in the neighborhood, so
yeah, that's my.
It doesn't seem fair to say, hey, well, this street can have it, and gosh, this street can. They've already received that approval.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. As my good friend the mayor knows, one of my favorite movies is Monty Python, The Meaning of Life. And for those of you who know the scene that I'm talking about, it's the last scene where there's this really grossly obnoxious guy. He's so fat, and he's eating, and he's throwing up, and he's eating, and they keep giving him more and more food. And the maitre d' says, "Oh, monsieur, just one more, oh, just one more, just one more." And he's, no, I couldn't do it, I couldn't do it. "Oh, monsieur, just one more, just one more." And then finally, the guy takes it and he explodes. So that's one of my favorite scenes, and it's kind of a comical answer to your question of what's the difference if we do one more. Tell that to the fat guy. So I don't think having done it before is necessarily an excuse for not doing it again. It's not the 18 inches that worries me more. It's the 38 additional bedrooms in an area. I'm pretty sure I voted against this project in the first place. And my rationale there was I didn't see the need for more homes. We're going by 50%. The population around the 241, a little bit below and a little bit above it, is going to increase by over 50%. And I didn't see I haven't seen any adequate traffic studies about that or other impact studies about what that enormous growth in the next couple of years. And we've had this discussion as we've done all these other ones. And absent that, so I'm always reluctant to approve more homes in that area unless there's some kind of compelling reason, like these are going to be affordable or these are going to be, there's another, it's conceivable to me there'd be a reason to say, yeah, let's do it. And I don't, so far I haven't seen the reason, but that's my problem, not the 18 inches. As a matter of fact, I think the taller ones actually look more attractive to me, not that it matters, than the shorter ones. So it's not the 18 inches, it's just more bedrooms, therefore more people, therefore more traffic in an area. What's the and that's a concern of mine, what's the reason for me to lay that concern aside? And so far I haven't seen it.
The only comeback I have to that is, and I appreciate your comments, that if you were to take I'll use your same analogy, a person who's 250 pounds represents 250 units, he actually went on a diet and got to the 196, or 190, whatever it is, 195. So he's actually lost a lot of weight already.
That's good.
So, Councilman Robbins.
Yeah, you answered some of my questions already. So, how many were approved in the Lexington development? Was that the? I seem to recall 17, but I don't know.
The Lexington development had 78 single-family homes.
78. But no, sorry, the three-story.
The 3 stories in Lexington were for the Plan 4 and Plan 5. I don't have an exact number of units, but there were 5 plans, and the 4 and 5 had the option of a third story.
Correct. And as I understand, this is an option, right? So these 33 units aren't guaranteed, or sorry, 38 units aren't guaranteed to be 3-story. It's an option for the buyer. Is that correct?
That's true. It's an option that would be offered by Toll Brothers.
Okay. And just to address some of the comments, I mean, I come from a large family. I'm the oldest of 7 children. And so there aren't very many 8-bedroom houses out there. So there was a lot of bedroom sharing growing up. I also recently moved from a 3-bedroom home that we've lived in for a long time into a 5-bedroom home. The size of our family didn't grow, just the size of the house did that we're living in. And so, I don't know demographically. I'm guessing you can't answer the question. If you can, great. If you can't, we'll just leave it as rhetorical. But do we have any clue of how many families in Lake Forest we have that have? These would be 5-bedroom homes, right? So 7 people living in them. I mean, do we have any idea of how many 7-member families we have? Because I'm just guessing we don't have a whole lot.
I don't have any information regarding that.
I didn't figure so, but I just thought I'd ask the question anyway. It's regarding traffic counts. I think that's something that we're all very sensitive to. Traffic is an issue that shows up in our surveys, and it's something that is important to residents for sure. Just correct me if I'm wrong, Director Wheeler, but as I understand, just in general, traffic is significantly higher in commercial and retail use versus residential. I know the time frames of traffic are a little bit different, but the number that sticks in my head is like 2.5 times the amount of residential traffic, commercial, retail. I could be wrong.
It's dramatically more. I don't remember offhand the ratio, but yes.
Okay, dramatically more. So, and I agree with the comment that the mayor made that, we've seen 55 homes dropped from the approved. So in the environmental report that initially was put together for this, there was an expectation of actually even more traffic. I'm sure that, would you be able to answer whether or not the square footage has changed? Did the houses just get larger, but it was a smaller number, or did the total square footage of what was approved, did that also shrink?
Mayor and council members, I'd have to do the math on that. They had more multifamily, which typically has less square footage. So we would have to do the math. I don't know if where we come out square footage wise in the end on that.
All right. Okay. I hear the comments. I don't think that anything has substantially changed from when we approved the project. I know that you didn't support it the first time around, so I wouldn't necessarily expect you to do it this time around. But it seems to me like the number of units has shrunk. The extra 18 inches that they're asking for isn't substantial. The Lexington development already has approval, so there's a little bit of continuity in the community. And I think that we essentially have commercial that's overlooking that property from the other side of the 241. Is that fair? It's the church, I guess, and maybe commercial, and so I don't think that there's a significant line of sight issue, especially since we're only talking about the 18 inches. So it seems to make sense to me, but I didn't call it up. So that's all I have.
Toll Brothers is the builder of this project, correct?
That's correct.
Toll Brothers, we have got a lot of high-end home developers that are working in Lake Forest, and Toll Brothers is one of the nationally renowned premier builders in the nation. And I think that we're splitting hairs here. What is the third story going to be used for? I heard a bonus room, an outdoor covered patio.
The proposed third story would include a room, a bathroom, as well as a covered deck area, and it would be up to each buyer to use it as a den, an office, a bonus room, a bedroom. It could be serve a variety of functions.
Okay, so it's something that I feel that being Toll Brothers, they do beautiful work. This is going to be a guarded gate community that's going to be, I think, a great addition to the market and the portfolio of Lake Forest, because it is going to be such a beautiful neighborhood. The amount we're asking is 18 inches, maybe this high, and I think that the fact that as Mayor Hamilton said, and used the analogy of the fat man gorging himself, this is a project that's been on a diet, because it went from 255 units to 195 total units in a guarded gate community, and not adding more than the height of this. And I think that it would be wrong for us to, since we already have it, and the design actually, and I agree with Councilman Gardner, it's actually a more beautified. It actually fits the mold of the home better with the model that I've seen in the book, with the extra bonus room on the top, and the fact that they're using not only Spanish tile roofs, but clay roofing material, which is fire retardant, and it's a thicker material, and that enables them to do that with the 18 inches. And so I think that the amendment to the permit is justified in the fact that they've toned down the amount of units they have there. So I'll move approval of site development permit 7/16/4945, an amendment for an alternative development standard, and I'd like to move that.
Can I add the recommended action?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, please.
Okay, so we have a motion of the recommended action. I'll second. Any discussion?
I don't have anything worth adding. I was just thinking here, if 4 years ago you told me that in 2 years' time, which has been about 2 years now, I would be able to tell almost 100% of the votes ahead of time, I would have said, no way. but this is incredible. Well, I must say tonight there was one vote that I thought I was going to lose 3-2, and that was the 2 days that my colleagues wanted to be off next year. I really thought I was going to lose on that 3-2, and amazingly I won 5-0. With the exception of that, so far I have a perfect record as to how I thought tonight was going to be. Almost every night I can tell how the vote is going to be. I hope you read up on what we have done for you or to you as your council people, as your elected officials. Put away the nonsense, the gossip, the untrue. Judge us on how we vote, how we protect you or we don't. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that I'm not opposed to development. In fact, there's a part of my life where I'm involved in development. And and as I said to the Toll Brothers, I'm not sure that I don't think they're here tonight. I'd be really interested if they could develop. Of course, they don't develop affordable housing. They're high-end stuff. We could use development here in Lake Forest. So I'm just worried that swath of area up there we're overbuilding there. And I was happy they went down. Now they're trying to build more in. So I agree with you. They're quality builders. We're lucky to have them here. I'm sure they'll do a good job. It's nothing to do with Toll Brothers or the idea of development itself. I'm worried that we're over-concentrating in that area, and so I wasn't in favor of it again. I'm sitting here tonight trying to say, well, is there a compelling reason to have them add 38 more? That God bless them. If they had said, we're going to take away 55, if you let us put back 38 bedrooms, I would have voted for that. I don't know if you can understand the distinction there. But given that they took away the 55, God bless them, now they want to add the 38. Well, I'm going to vote no on that. But had it been a different kind of an offer, I would have done this. And it's no reflection on them or development per se.
Just to be clear, that's exactly what they could still do. So that's the SDP that's in place right now, is they could build the 250. So, they've already started on some of the developments, so they couldn't change everything. But, they could up the volume in particular areas. So I think they've done that. They just didn't, the narrative wasn't the way, it could convince you, I guess. But, it's, again, when we were talking about some of the traffic issues, I feel like the development there is going to have less traffic. It was zoned for something else. It wasn't just open space. That would be completely different if the city owned the property or if it had been zoned open space. It could always be turned into something, and eventually it might. When we initially approved this, I went through kind of my rationale for my vote, and I just felt like commercial or retail doesn't make sense right now. Retail definitely doesn't to me. I've explained it many, many times, but because of the impact of internet sales and what that's doing to brick and mortar. And so I felt like putting more retail in a particular area like that might actually damage the retail that we currently have. I think that from an office, industrial, commercial space, we've done fantastic compared to some of our neighbors. Maybe not Irvine, I don't know percentage-wise. They've got a lot of corporations headquartered there, but for a city our size to have Kawasaki and Oakley and Panasonic Avionics, a lot of big companies located here, I think that we've done our share. And when I look at this particular development, I don't know the exact number, so I'm just going to ballpark it. If I'm not in the right range, just let me know. But the public benefit here, again, when we went through the DAs for all the residential developments that have been approved over the last decade, even many of them long before we all were here, that number was approaching 200 million. This probably pushes, well, this might be included in it, I'm not really sure, but this one's roughly about 10 to 12 million, if my math's correct, on 200 units of about $50,000 to $60,000. Sound about right? The public benefit here. So that's affordable housing and traffic and all those sorts of things. So that's where this made sense to me. I mean, we're going to be able to spend that money on things like portions of the senior center. I mean, it's portions of everything. Those dollars aren't being specifically spent on specific projects, but those dollars are going into the pool that that's paying for the senior center and community center, and could pay for some other things. Who knows? They're going to pay for a lot of maintenance projects that we have over the next couple of decades. So I think that we've been very fortunate. If it would have been developed as commercial, how it had been previously zoned, the public benefit from a dollar perspective would be zero. It was already zoned that way. We would have got nothing. So, that's the benefit that I see that all the residents of Lake Forest are experiencing, and we have to be smart about how we spend those dollars, and so that's why I'm really excited about the next agenda item, talking about the Civic Center itself, and I think this is just one of the many ways that we're able to provide that high-quality product for those high-quality amenities for the residents of Lake Forest. So.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on the two gentlemen to my right, Adam Nick and Councilman Nick and Councilman Robinson, this really was a win-win. We had a reduction in traffic, and we got paid for it, the city. I mean, how many times does that happen? So with that, I'll call the vote.
That motion carries with Councilmember Gardner and Councilmember Nick opposed.
All right, I have a request from Councilman Gardner to take a 5-minute recess. We're going to get back together here.
They're not going to use it for us.
We have 2 more agenda items tonight. Numbered agenda items. So we'll reconvene. Agenda item number 16.
Agenda item 16, Civic Center Schematic Design Review, submitted by Assistant City Manager.
Mr. City Manager.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. To start our presentation, I'm going to turn this over to our City Manager, Deborah Rose.
Mayor and members of the City Council, it is our pleasure to bring to you tonight the schematic design for the Lake Forest Civic Center. Now, if you want to clap, that would be great. Yay! It's a huge milestone for our project. All right, so just to orient everyone as to the location of the future Civic Center, it's actually going to be in the property that is behind the building that we are in now. To access it, you would travel down Commerce Center and turn on Baffin Bay to get into the area where the Civic Center is located. Or if you were traveling on Dimension, you would turn on Indian Ocean Drive. So I'm going to start out by talking about the actual 2 design processes that are going on simultaneously that relate to the Civic Center. The first is actually the design of the Serrano Summit project. And this design is going to transform the undeveloped land that was the former Los Alisos Water District headquarters into new neighborhoods with streets, housing, landscaping, and parks. And that design includes the rough grading design for the Civic Center pad. It includes the extension of Indian Ocean Drive, which will front the Civic Center property. And we do plan on renaming that to Civic Center Drive. It includes utilities such as sewer and water and utility connections to the Civic Center site. The design engineer for the Serrano Summit project is Michael Baker International, and they're working under contract to the Irvine Ranch Water District, who is the owner of the Serrano Summit project. The second design process, and then the one we're going to focus on in this presentation, is the design of the Civic Center project, which will transform the rough graded pad into a completed Civic Center campus. And this includes the fine grading, parking, buildings, and outdoor areas that are identified in the Civic Center program. And as you know, our design architect is Carrier Johnson. So as I said, our first presentation tonight is going to focus on the Civic Center design. Our second presentation by our finance director, Keith Neves, will focus on the proposed amendment to the construction manager's contract, and that relates to work related to items in the Serrano Summit design effort and the impacts of those items on our construction project schedule. So with that, the story of the Civic Center really begins with the opportunity study area. And as Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Voights mentioned, the main, who's advancing the slides tonight? Okay, we need to do a little seat change here. Okay, this was going to be a quick reminder on the main funding source for the Civic Center project, which is the public facilities fees that you have previously mentioned. Okay, so back in 2011, the city hosted a series of public meetings and had some planning meetings with the City Council for the Civic Center project. And at that time, the community identified some planning principles which were adopted by the City Council in 2011 for the project. And I'll briefly mention these. We will go through them a little more further in the presentation. But the first two planning principles were that the project should really reflect Lake Forest, its history, some of the look and feel of the community. It should be a destination and not focus so much on government transactions, but really be a focal point for leisure time and experiences for the community. It should also provide new amenities, things that were not currently offered in the community, such as banquet facilities, community meeting rooms, as well as a standalone senior center. It should also, to the largest extent possible, accommodate multiple uses. And so also in 2011, the City Council reviewed and adopted a conceptual plan, and that really defined the program for the Civic Center. And at that point, the conceptual plan consisted of a combination community center, senior center. So the concept was it would be located all in one building. It would contain a council chamber that could also be used as a performing arts space, and a combination community policing center combined with the city's administrative offices. All of the parking for the project, which is approximately 465 parking spaces, would be accommodated with surface parking. And at this point, I am going to transition the presentation over to our project team. And so tonight we have Linda Zubiotti, who is our senior project manager. She'll turn it over to Evan Mather, who is our landscape architect. And then we'll also hear from John Martinez, who is our project designer.
Thank you, honorable council members. Really appreciate being here, and thank you for the opportunity. And also for all the citizens that are here, we really appreciate you being here and enjoying this moment of Carrier Johnson and our design team. First of all, our project right now is at schematic design phase. It's really the design journey that we've taken to this point in collaboration and affirmation of all the goals. Deborah's talked about some of the goals, which were primarily that your Civic Center was a reflection of what Lake Forest should be.
Sorry, could you just move the mic just over
closer?
a little bit? There,
okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. That it reflects what Lake Forest should be. It should be a place that would be a destination for you, that it would provide those amenities that were required by the community, and also accommodate through multiple uses. So it wasn't just a standalone and people would move away, and it would not be a place where people would come to at all times. So with that, what we wanted to talk a little bit about was the design timeline. What you see there is a graphic of the design timeline and where we're at right now. We are really in the schematic design phase. It's the graphic of that. We've marched from the conceptual portion of our project. It was really more of an initial fact-finding phase through workshops, through looking through your goals, and also the program that was provided to us by the City of Lake Forest. Really, it's more of a pause right now for us in our schematic, and what you have in front of you and what the citizens are looking at is to see that those goals are being met so we can go forward in an affirmation that we are in the right direction and creating that civic center that you're really looking for. So part of that was looking at those planning principles that you had. They were primarily looking at different things, like I mentioned before, certain distinctive things, but it was also the types of buildings that you were going to have in your civic center, which was your community center, your senior center, your chamber, council chamber and performing arts, your community policing, along with your administrative offices, and then the surface parking that we were to introduce to it. But coupled with that, which was very enlightening, was meeting with your community. In meeting with your community, we found that there was a lot of ideas that they had, which was very informative. And in listening, because that was the basic premise of everything that we had with them, was understanding what they felt. They definitely affirmed, all the types of buildings that you had placed on our goals to meet for you. But they also talked a lot about how they wanted to have a campus, that they wanted a campus that the buildings be formed in a campus format, that it would be in a courtyard design, And then also that there would be a lot of connections with the natural environment. You have the Serrano Creek, you have the Serrano Trails, you have a lot of natural environment that they felt as part of the community should be connected and somehow be respected with the rest of the planning efforts we had. And that also your Civic Center would provide a place where there would be indoor and outdoor spaces. To us, that meant stitching your buildings with the spaces that were in proximity to what we were designing for you. So with that, we developed what we call is the essential part of your concept. It's what we're calling the concept, how can I say, your master plan. But this is a conceptual master plan you're looking at that really brought those ideas together, which were setting your buildings in a campus setting, setting up courtyard designs, the indoor and outdoor amenities, and you're building multiple uses for all your buildings so that they had a place that they could sit. And one of the things that we first looked at when we first started was really translating that into a concept. The concept was, in looking at, I'm going to change over to this, let's see if I can get it, was placing all of those goals into a civic type cohesion and bringing basically an access to your buildings that would provide a civic plaza. It would provide a place that would join all your buildings together, so there was a initial vocabulary between them, and also that it would become a place where there would be outdoor areas, as our community groups had told us. So those were the stitching that we provided there. The next thing that we looked at was how we were going to use your land, the property that you had given us. It's based in an irregular, how can I say, shape. So one of the things was, how do we maximize it so that we can get that campus feeling for you? And one of the things was, like Deborah mentioned, the initial program was calling for surface parking. And one of those things, as we know, that was going to be a major footprint and take away a lot of what you were trying to do. So we introduced basically a single deck parking structure for you, and where we then minimized and freed up a lot of your site to create basically more of your program, more of the open space, more of your civic space for your community. And it turned out to be that the parking only takes up now 40% of your site versus the 60 or plus percentage of the surface parking area. So now we had more room to work with everything, the goals that everybody had set for you. It also started talking about the multiple uses that you could have. The next thing was looking at the buildings and the separation of the buildings, which was the senior center could have multiple events going at the same time, along with your community center could be having events going at the same time. So you have a multiplicity of different events going at that same time. So you would have a destination. So this complete spinal area that we had, civic spine, as we're calling it, the geometry that this plan took as a concept, then started creating public areas to where the parking deck is, the community center, the chambers, the council chambers with your performing arts became a public center. And then you had your operational side, which is your administrative offices, and then your community policing. What that did was it activated, it became a plan that would have, usually you look at plans where you have business hours, and after the business is over, it becomes dark. So what we were trying to create for you was something that after business hours, it still became something that was active for you. So you have all the public community areas in an activated area for you that it's after hours, it's Saturday and Sunday because of the amenities and everything that you're going to be getting. My fellow partners in the design Evan is going to speak about the landscaping, how it stitches it together, and then John is going to talk about the architecture that we've created for your project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Evan so he can talk about the landscaping that's going to be placed into your project. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Linda, and members of the council. It's an honor to be with you here tonight to talk about our design team's vision for the landscape design for the Lake Forest Civic Center campus. Our vision for the landscape design is based on a concept that we call the mosaic of three ecologies. What we want to do is we want to bring the landscapes that occur naturally in the city of Lake Forest into the Civic Center campus itself and connect the users to the native landscape. These three distinct landscapes that tell the ecological story of Lake Forest are the Pine Meadow ecology, the Chaparral ecology, and the riparian ecology. The Pine Meadow is simple with evergreens and natural boulders to create a sense of buffer and security. The Chaparral is rich in oaks and California natives and grasses, additionally with upright trees to bring formality and structure to the public spaces. The riparian ecology includes vegetation native to our streams and creeks, sycamores, alders, and willows, with flowering understory to attract butterflies and hummingbirds. The specific plant palette is based on what is prescribed in the Serrano Summit Master Plan, augmented with additional drought-tolerant California natives. The tree palette will include pines and sycamores, willows and zelkovas, and other ornamental natives. The understory palette will include succulents, ground covers, grasses, and perennials to bring color and seasonality to the Civic Center. The campus design is a destination landscape with a wide range of amenities, including public plazas and secure courtyards, which will act as a seamless extension of the architecture to bring to the campus that sense of indoor-outdoor living that is so characteristic of living in Southern California. I'm going to walk you through the site here on the plan. So we approach the site along this evergreen buffer of pines, the Pine Meadow ecology along Indian Ocean Drive, and are welcomed by a signature tree at the circular drop-off. Parking is provided in adjacent parking lots, surface parking lots, where shade is provided by a deciduous canopy of shade trees. This is the Chaparral ecology. The parking lots will also help manage on-site stormwater with permeable paving and adjacent bioswales. The site is formally organized along what we call the B Street axis, which provides pedestrian access from Serrano Summit through the Civic Center campus, terminating at a view deck and connection to the Serrano Creek Regional Trail. This experience of walking along the axis has a linear water feature, a civic green for informal lounging flanked by groves of canopy shade trees, ending with overlook decks providing expansive views of the surrounding landscapes. Alternatively, one enters the site from the parking structure, in which is incorporated a threshold of vegetated green screens, vine trellises, going through a series of garden spaces, a bit more informal than what happens on the B axis, the B Street axis, again terminating in a view overlook deck. This is the riparian ecology. A bike center with storage and a repair station is located adjacent to the parking structure for users of the regional trail network. These public spaces are complemented by a series of garden courtyards designed for specific functions and user groups. For example, the Senior Center has a dining terrace adjacent to the meal distribution point, an arts and crafts courtyard, a yoga deck adjacent to the fitness center. As I mentioned, there are overlook decks adjacent to the community center that wrap the building and provide views of the landscape. There are also additional courtyards adjacent to the administration building, adjacent to the public counter and the public safety entry. In conclusion, as one walks and wanders through the Civic Center campus, they will experience this celebration of the diverse landscape of Lake Forest through this series of planting ecologies. And with that, I'll hand it off to John, who will tell you about the architecture.
Thanks, Evan. We're excited to be here tonight to share with you this campus that we've worked on so hard. In looking at this image, you could see a view of the project looking in this direction from what you would enter in as, currently it's Indian Ocean Drive, will be renamed as Civic Center Drive, and then from there looking east, you'll have this view overall of the project. We see this campus as a family of buildings, each with its own unique architectural characteristics. And as we move from one to the other, you'll see as each building has its own flavor, even though they're all in the Craftsman style. Beginning with the Senior Center, it is directly adjacent to the single-level parking deck here. At the east end of the project, we have our Community Center with its central courtyard. Centralized in the project, we have our Council Chamber Performing Arts Center. And then fronting Civic Center Drive will be the Community Policing Center and City Hall. Now looking at the opposite direction now from in this view, you will be looking west now towards the back end of the project. We at Kerr Johnson believe that there really is no wrong side or back side to a project. We really focus on all sides being important and articulated in such a way. So in designing the Civic Center, we wanted to make sure in paying particular attention to the details along this side that faces the community, with overlook decks and large windows that capture the views. The Senior Center is where we begin our walk through the site. It's located here in blue, and we're looking at one of the two entries to the site. We met with the seniors, and we all agreed amongst our Kerr Johnson team that we love your seniors in your community. They were a wealth of knowledge to us. We met with them twice, and during both meetings, they really set the bar high for us. There was no low standards here. We fought really hard to try to meet those standards. So hopefully tonight we'll share some of those goals that they shared with us. And one of those goals was to have a prominent entry on both sides. So this would be covered, have direct access to the parking and the deck. Also, there's going to be a second entry that have direct access to the roundabout for drop-off, and directly connected to our ADA parking on the site. Another goal that they shared with us is that this be very warm and inviting. And we did that with the use of materials and eaves and the use of courtyards in the space. They loved the idea of courtyards and shared that with us. And from every room in this building, whether it be the fitness room or the community multipurpose room or the classrooms or the hallway or the entries, they all have doors that open up onto these courtyards. So as they have events in all these spaces, these events spill out onto the open spaces that Evan has worked on. Some other things we looked at are places for gathering and conversation, and a dedicated meal distribution area, which will have a sink and a covered area for meal prep, as well as storage on the inside of the building. Altogether, we feel that the Senior Center is like a second home. It's a resort for the seniors in the community because they deserve nothing less. And moving on to the community center now of the building. The heart of this building is really the courtyard at its center, and the courtyard is what we're showing in this top image. It is a roof structure that you see that's exposed on top. That'll be very dramatic, but at the center of it will be open to the air, so light and air will be able to flood this space, and we see this as being an incredible area for gathering live events. More importantly, though, it really connects the project, as Evan talked to in his master plan, that you can see directly from as you enter the project. You can see there's our signature oak tree, and it runs through this spine. And you can see in this image where these doors open up on the back to where we'd have our overlook, and that overlook is where we have the vistas of Lake Forest. Now from this room also, we have these large doors, and these are about 12 feet high doors, and as they open, it creates a 30-foot high or 30-foot wide opening that opens up onto the outdoor spaces. So again, as we imagine these large events, large civic gatherings, that people can come in and out of these spaces as easily as possible. And then from the right side, we have some smaller gathering rooms, and on the left, we have a large gathering space that could be rented out, and that could fit about 350 people at round tables. And in reflecting on just the summary of our community center, we imagine that this would be really the quintessential place for our youth sports banquets, for wedding receptions, and for conferences for your community. And moving on to now the Council Chamber and Performing Arts Building at the center of your site. This really is a special place. In meeting with the community groups, they wanted something that was different, something that other cities that they had seen around the world as sort of a heart, a place of central gathering. And They felt that right now Lake Forest lacked that. And so one way that we wanted to provide that was something of a beacon, something that they could see not only as just a landmark for the project, but a landmark for the community as a whole. And that landmark we see as a clock tower. This tower would anchor the site. You could see it here, it'd be at the center, the direct center of the project. So from all sides, you'd be able to view this tower. And another feature, again, was incorporating these large doors. So for a performing arts venue and council chamber, this will be a council chamber like none other. It will have, again, these large expansive doors that open up. And for large gatherings, we see it holding 200 people right now on the inside. But as you expand the building with these large doors, we see that the events could spill out onto the event green that Evan has designed, and also creating a great place for community gatherings. And moving now forward to the building closest to Civic Center Drive, here is our City Hall and Community Policing Center. Here we'll focus on a couple of details of the Craftsman design and how we really wanted to specifically treat this differently because it faces the future residential development across the street. Now, we didn't want to create a large building, an office building, that would be imposing to the residential across the street. We felt that it needed to reflect the scale and some of the attention to detail that future residential will provide. So we've done that with extended eaves, exposed wood structure. We have a stone base, and some articulated balconies at the top that overlook the courtyard. Last but not least, we have our covered parking that Linda mentioned. It was really important to the community that there be this covered parking, as it does save so much room in the master plan for our outdoor amenities. But also we didn't want to feel like you enter and exit the project through a dark and dreary parking structure. So we really wanted to focus on how you enter and exit this would have an elevator, a large stair, and as you can see, we've articulated it in a way that mirrors the rest of the campus with its craftsman design, with the stone base and the large wood overhangs and exposed structure. And altogether, what it will do for the site is really create a natural flow as you progress from the parking to the entry plaza to the Civic Plaza, and then you'll disperse throughout the project. This concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll hand it over to Linda to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Remember the past, challenge the future, and that is Lake Forest. And one of the things that we're really trying to bring is that in remembering the past, it's basically bringing the architectural style, the connections to nature, and a civic destination, something that sometimes is lost, and it's wonderful that you're trying to gain. It's a civic destination where people can come, and it's really the town hall. It is the place to come as a civic destination. Our goal is to meet that challenge for you and to create a community place, a civic center that is really a center of your community. And for that, we thank you very much, and we're here to answer any questions. But for right now, Deborah's going to continue the presentation, but we will be here after the presentation to ask for any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about next steps. In the staff report, we noted that the initial construction estimate for the range of construction costs to build this schematic design is between $50 and $60 million. Currently, our construction manager, Bernards, is working on an independent cost estimate, and once that's produced, they will sit down with the cost estimators from Cummings that produced Carrier Johnson's estimate, and they will come up with an agreed-upon estimate that we can present to you for the schematic design. We will bring that number along with the broader program budget to you in a future City Council agenda report. So at this point, we are seeking three things from the City Council. We would like your comments on the schematic design. As well, we would request your approval of the schematic design, as well as authorization to move to the next phase, which is design development. That concludes our staff report, and we will all be happy to answer any questions you have about the project.
Do we have any members of the public?
We've had no requests.
Okay. If you want to come up and fill out a green speaker form. we're excited that someone from the public gets to speak on this. We like your input. If you can just state your name and city of residence. Thank you. And welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Franklin Choco, and I'm a resident up in Portola Hills, part of Lake Forest. I think you can't help but be impressed by the efforts of this design team to put together something that is a destination point and will become, if you will, the talk of the town for quite a few years. The only concern I have is with the Performing Arts Center / council chambers. My concern, and it may not be as well founded due to limitations that I'm not aware of, is the seating capacity. A performing arts center, to me, means you're going to have repertoire, musical organizations, as well as perhaps people who are doing travelogues, whatever. But the size of those groups and their budgets necessitate having adequate seating to justify the expense of coming and performing. The seating capacity is currently 200 seats. I belong to an organization which is headquartered in Lake Forest that is called South County Sound. We are a 4-part men's a cappella chorus. I know that for us, in order to charge admission for our performances, the minimum seating requirement is 400 seats. Linda explained that the Theater Performing Arts Center has the capability of opening up to larger audiences. I think that's great, providing that the weather is not inclement and that there's adequate sound systems in place that will broadcast the performances. That's my only concern. I'm in favor of this 100%. And regardless of whether my desires on modifying this design come to fruition, again, I want to compliment this group for all the hard work that they've done. Thank you for your time.
Wow, thank you very much. So we'll bring it back to staff. I mean, the council for comments, questions.
I guess my first question would be to Evan with the landscape design. I was looking through the trees here. Your big signature tree, as someone that's probably the longest term resident of Lake Forest, formerly El Toro, sycamores were a big California sycamores. Now you had did you have that? What were you planning on for the big signature tree in the front?
It hasn't been decided, but it could be something that's evergreen, like an oak, or it could be a large pine tree or another conifer, or it could be a sycamore. It hasn't been determined yet. That's something that we will investigate as we get further into the project.
The pines at this level really are native valley trees, for say. So some of the big trees that when I was a kid growing up here were the big sycamores, and there's another one that's along the creeks. Oak, the big oak tree.
Right, oaks and sycamores are pretty common in this landscape.
The oaks sort of seem like the most majestic, and then I remember Old Town Tustin, they had some really big ones, and I think the largest transplant of a oak tree was just happened down at Rancho Viejo, which was that big 180-foot span oak tree that they transplanted down there. You probably read about that. That's my only take. I didn't see the oak trees in here, and I know that they're native to our valley and our creeks. And the other thing is, as you look over the creek from our balconies in the back side, are we planning on landscaping some on that bankment of the creek?
Our project is just to the adjacent of the back of the buildings. Perhaps Linda could talk about the other project, but...
Mayor Pro Tem Voights, I would direct your attention to the master plan. You could see there that there's a green outline that goes around the buildings. That's the Civic Center pad, which Evan is producing the landscaping for. Beyond that is a slope, and then we get into that dashed area, and that's our preservation area. That's the 2 acres that we are not going to build on. But we are going to do restoration work. There will be plantings in there. That's was partially designed as part of the permitting process, as well as the completed design will be done by a restoration contractor that we have yet to hire.
Okay, just to throw it out there, the creek is going to be adjacently behind us, and we'll need to eventually address something back there. Because the fact is that the landscape along that creek will affect the beauty of our Civic Center pad. But that's nothing further for you, on me. But thank you. I'm excited. I can't wait. My other now, John, the community center, is that maxed out with 35 round 10 for 10 seating?
350 people we've seated at right now in one of the rooms.
So 35 tables.
At 10. I believe so. Yeah.
It's Mayor Pro Tem Voights. It's round tables, 8 per table.
So it's around.
Yeah. If you think about a standard round, that seats 8.
Okay, so 8 per. So we're going to go up more.
We'll do more.
Parking. How many parking stalls do you have in the parking canopy there?
In the parking deck, we have 311 stalls.
311. Now, is there any parking in front of the buildings at all?
We do. We have 155 surface stalls.
That's out along the
Yes.
front drive there. How many?
155.
City Hall seating, which will actually be our theater seating too, which will be slanted like a theater, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that's at 350 max?
In the Performing Arts Council Chamber, we have 200 seats currently.
200 seats.
Yes.
Now, is there any wiggle room on the 200 seating for the theater?
As Linda or the Commonwealth mentioned earlier, we're looking at the opening of one wall of the theater and possibly expanding that into the lobby space and out to the event lawn. But we're still working on the details of exactly
So
how.
have rolling doors?
Yeah, there'll be like a large slider.
Nothing further. Thank you so much. That's all of my questions.
Councilmember Nick? Robinson? Councilmember Robinson?
First, I just want to say, great presentation. Thank you very much. I know that we had a few community meetings, both with seniors as well as with the community as a whole. Do we know roughly how many residents showed up for those meetings, just in total? Just ballpark, I don't need.
Well, the senior meetings were the most popular meetings, and I think there were approximately 80 seniors at the first. And
There was many.
yeah, the community
Full
meetings
house.
that were held on Saturday mornings we had fewer people, but really good input. Those were more along the lines of 20 people, as well as the online survey that we had. And so the community was invited to provide their comments there, and we've summarized that in your staff report.
Okay, and as far as the surveys, I mean, we get a few dozen, 100?
There were 103 respondents, although not everyone answered every question.
Got it. Just so that I have an idea of all the comments in the staff report, how many people we're looking at. Sometimes we have meetings about park development and 12 people show up, and if 6 have a specific idea, that's kind of what gets pushed, and it's really could be just 6 people who are all on the same page showing up together. So I just
No, it was very diverse, and we had exercises for them, and we kind of gave everybody an opportunity to talk. We had our staff at each table to moderate the activities, and everybody was just great. It was very, enlightening for us. One thing that I may have not mentioned with all the things we were talking about, as part of the refinement and going from the schematic to the design development, there is, we will be holding one additional workshop for the seniors and the community to take them a little bit further into the detail, because right now, it's so, they're not here, and a lot of the community is not here, that we can actually take it in a slower pace, detail, walk them through the spaces, and we can get further input as part of our design development.
Well, thank you very much for all that, and it's very exciting. I know from the 2011 conceptual plan to where we're at today, some of the big things, and I'm guessing that this was really born out of the seniors. This first one was just having a standalone senior center. A lot of them have talked to me about that specifically, and so glad to see that's incorporated. I'm guessing the vast majority, if not unanimity, was there for that particular concept.
That was one of their, it was part of what they suggested and they talked about, but a lot of it, when we started looking at the conceptual plan, was really the diversity in functions, having multiple uses going through, and it gave a lot of credibility to what they were saying, in that you could have a senior event, and yet you can have something over at the community center. If it was one building, then everybody would be kind of clashing, but if you had both of them, they could have their event or whatever they may having that morning, and then you could be having a lecture or something over at the community center and servicing two different types of events at the same time, so to give you that multiplicity. So it was something that was part of keeping your civic center to a community for their different variety of events.
Absolutely. The single deck parking, I think, is also a great addition, trying to put more usable space in the roughly 8 acres that we have here. So really glad to see that. Thanks for answering the questions about how many parking spaces I think that we're going to have. I don't know if ample is the best word, but 450 plus parking spaces, plus some around the city hall structure. That's going to be a lot of parking, so that's great. Some of my just more specific questions. The community center with the open air portion to it. You might not be at this level yet, but I know we don't experience a lot of rain, but I was just kind of curious about the water drainage, things like that, and how that's all being structured. So am I too early in that question?
No, it's a good question. It is something that we've thought about, in that the roof, when you walk out from any of those event areas, you will have definitely a soffit over you so that you don't walk right into the open area. So we thought about that. And the water that does get into the center area will be drained off with, floor, drains and everything that will take it away to the storm drain.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure I asked the question. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the wood structure. I know we have a lot of exposed wood, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot different than, say, for instance, the shade structures that we have at parks, but those, have to be replaced. Those I wouldn't call part of like a 100-year park plan. This is our 100-year, home, right? So maybe you can explain a little bit about the wood and its resilience to weather and things like that.
Okay, so we have talked about that, and it is part of the cost estimating exercise that we're doing, and we've talked with, is that because we do understand it's a civic building, it is something that has to last for the next 50 to 100 years, and wood is something that has to be maintained, and it has to be taken care of. We have looked at, and we are contemplating, that structure portions that are above where there is not the human scale, that we will have either aluminum or steel members that are painted to reflect kind of the wood structure, and that places where there are the tactile, where it is the human scale, like maybe just the main entries, that we will use wood effectively, so that we concentrate in certain areas where you will have greater maintenance than other places.
Okay, thanks. So I just make sure that we're addressing that, and so I appreciate the comments there. the last thing, I was reading through it, I think it only showed up once, and there was a question mark to it, which I think means it probably was a question from a resident, but it was about LEED certification. And I know we approved, I can't remember the level, I don't know if it was like platinum, gold, silver, or gold, silver, bronze, but I think we grabbed the one in the middle, which was roughly...
We actually,
So-
you gave us direction to actually go to the lowest level.
The lowest level.
Right, right. So we're in the process of costing that now, and we'll bring back those costs to you, but we'll have to make a decision at some point whether you would like to pursue LEED certification for all 4 buildings, or if you'd just like to pursue it for one. And so we'll bring that information back to you at a future meeting.
Okay, I know, some of the questions, it seemed like from residents were things like solar and electric power for vehicles and things of that nature, which all kind of falls into this area. So just wanted to make sure that was still on the radar. I knew we'd approved something. I didn't remember the exact terminology for all of it. But
What I'd like to add to that is there's LEED, which is a certification, and you get your plaque. But as professionals, and our mechanical engineer is more in tune with it, we have to abide by the state of California Cal Green, and some of their measures are even stiffer than what we have to do to certify the building. So in some measures, we are going to be giving you a very efficient, energy-efficient building that's going to be probably superseding even what LEED would be asking of you. So, and we do have already planned for plug-ins for electric cars and things like that that are part of the sustainable vocabulary, that they want electric car charging stations, they want bicycle, lockers and areas for them, and all those types of amenities that are be part of your Civic campus.
Great. Well, thank you for that response. And when that does come back, I'd love to hear more about the Cal Green part. I mean, if we're just basically paying for like a stamp and we're already doing something that's even more robust, I'm not really sure that that's necessarily worth the money. I want to make sure that it turns into something tangible rather than just, a nice little sticker we get to put somewhere, a plaque or something like that. It's an expensive plaque if it already has to be a part of the process there. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Absolutely.
When that item comes up. I think that's it. Just again, thank you very much for the presentation. This is very exciting for the community. Since I moved into Lake Forest in 1999, I've been hearing about Civic Center, Senior Center, all those sorts of things. And so it's exciting to see it now coming to more of fruition. And, hopefully we'll have some groundbreaking in the next handful of months. So thanks.
Linda, while you're up there, I just got a real quick follow-up as I was thinking about it. Our seniors fill up this room for bingo calling. What would be the size and how many seats or round tables or rectangular tables are we planning for the senior center for bingo calling and lunches and that?
We have that. We have a data sheet.
60 by 70 will be the multi-purpose room, and we can see 200.
200 of our seniors.
Thank you. That was my. Well, you were the community center that sits 350 or 250 for the community center. 350. What is the dimensions of that?
You guys have it on the data sheet? Okay, maybe it's one thing we missed in our data sheet. We're trying to get all the information.
It's all right. And if you
But it's
look at it.
definitely larger than the seniors.
We're very excited, and it looks beautiful, and I want to thank you for your time and your presentation to your team. I'm looking forward to future presentations and
Absolutely.
moving along with getting it with the community. I think we're all excited about it.
No, absolutely. They're an integral part to what we're doing.
Great. Thanks to you, your staff, our staff. I think this really is a tremendous piece of work that we're seeing.
If you don't mind, I have some questions.
Yeah, I'm going through my questions.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So I've ridden along this trail, the Serrano Creek Trail, quite often and quite regularly. There's kind of a high point at Indian Ocean, and this is kind of has to do with more the, if you look at page 13 of the slide, it's got that little angle. I think there's a building right on the other side of that property line, right? So are we, I'm sure you're addressing it, but are we going to put lots of cover so that their property is hidden?
Yes, we are. We're going to have where we start coming down the ramp, we're going to have a retaining wall. Actually, they have a what I call a garden wall there. So we are going to do our retaining and give them a retaining wall to come up. They're higher than us, so we're going to come in, and then we will be landscaping their side with vertical vegetation on that side. So
Okay.
they won't be looking into our area.
I kind of figured that, but I just thought I'd ask.
No problem.
There's a big chain link fence all along between the Serrano Creek Trail and what that IRWD property is. Is that, I'm sure that's going to go, but I think that kind of leads to the security question that I have. You say campus, and I think schools and high schools and things, and I get to go to a decent amount of those for soccer games and things. And so what do you envision, like the security? I mean, I obviously want an open campus feel, but at the same time, you kind of have to lock things up every once in a while. I don't think midnight we want, skateboarders and no offense to any current skateboarders in the audience.
Mayor Hamilton, we have talked about this, and
Yes.
you're right. There is a chain link fence that is around the entire, we'll call it the Serrano Summit, future home of the Serrano Summit development. So at some point, we do envision that chain link fence coming down and being replaced with a wrought iron fence, but we do want to secure the back of that site and figure out how to do that so we can address exactly what you're talking about. There would be operating hours for the Civic Center campus, and part of that would be achieved with an exterior fence. And so it's part of what we'll bring forward in a future design phase.
So are you just thinking the back, or are you going to go around the whole thing?
We don't think we'll necessarily go around the whole thing, but definitely cordon off the back so people can't enter from that side. We'll have to think through how we would do the front. Obviously, we don't want to make it look unfriendly, but we do have to address that. It is backing up to that trail area.
Okay. I even think of people wanting to come in through the circle at 2 in the morning. You know, there's...
Exactly.
Okay. So as you... I'm extremely familiar with the site. So it's at a nice peak kind of here, and then there's a really steep hill going down. Are you changing any of I don't imagine you're changing any of the Serrano Creek Trail, correct?
No, we're not. We're not. We're working, well, MBI is working on the, it's not getting over there, but they are working on the trail and the grades on how to get that back portion. We are just coordinating with them on the connection point for it.
Okay. So it sounds like are you saying that the hill is going to kind of come off and start a steeper decline right at the end of the community center? Kind of.
Right here, yes, there's an embankment that goes down, and they are going to be creating this new, the trail that goes through there, and we're not too, how can I say that a design isn't yet, but how they're going to switch it back and get to the property.
Linda, can you repeat that into the mic for the benefit of the audience?
So we have a connection up at the top, and there is an embankment that goes down, and they are going to be working the trail back into that embankment.
So I think what you're saying is our elevation is going to be lower.
Our elevation is high. We're at the top, and then the path is going to be worked down the embankment to the bottom where the creek is.
Okay, so we're going to be higher than the creek trail.
Absolutely. Yes, we are.
Okay. So that was going to be my next question, is that a single point, or is there going to be kind of like an open, it sounds like you're saying it's going to be a trail that comes.
It's a trail that goes down.
Okay. I noticed that the bike, I think it's number 17, the bike center, is going to be, it looks like a decent ways away from the trailhead.
Right. So right now, this is the place we put it. We figure if someone comes, they ride their bike, they can connect to the trail. We have a walkway that goes to the back, and then they can either, we're going to have bike lockers or a place for them to leave their bike if they just want to walk it, because it's going to be rather steep. You can't really ride your bike down there. They can leave their bike or fix their bike in this area, and before, they're going to go down into that embankment.
Okay. I don't know if it's possible. It just seems like it could be a little closer to, I don't know,
This is,
18
like I
or
said,
whatever.
we're still in the diagrammatic.
Sure.
So that's a comment. That's a good one. We will document it. Akiko's documenting over there that once we finish that, we may be able to find that this building is, maybe can scoot a little bit and we can create some area somewhere here. This is the back end of the community center where there's a lot of servicing and going back and forth. So for their safety, that's why we put them over here. If there's big trucks or anything coming in, that they're not in the way of service trucks that are preparing for a large banquet, are moving back, backing in, and then someone's walking in with a bike. So we took those two types of soft transportation and hard transportation and separated them. And for that reason, they're over here, and the hard transportation is over on the other side.
Okay. So there's going to be a decent amount of people coming from what I call downhill on the trail, I would guess, and then your entrance to the trail is going to be kind of going uphill. So if someone's...
let's say someone is coming in down Indian Ocean, and I'm on my bike, I can run down. I can take the ramp down, and then I can just take it over here. And if I'm going to be adventuresome and go take my bike down the trail, then I would just take it through the path that we've put across here, and then take it down, switch it back till I get to the bottom.
Yes, and so I'm saying the Serrano Creek Trail is like right here, and so your entrance is going kind of up the hill. I don't know if there would be, someone coming from this way, they'd have to go all the way up and then come back down. I don't know if there would be like a downhill entrance. It's just a thought. The topography might not work at that point, but...
And we can convey that to the other design team that is working on it also.
Without knowing before, I was just looking at it, I thought, just have a trail that goes straight out so that, those going either up the hill or coming from the downhill location onto the Serrano Creek Trail would just have one point of entry. But I'm sure you're addressing all those things. So looking at the parking structure, it looks like there's only one entrance to the campus from the second story.
From the second story, there is an entry. Yes, there's one right here, right when you come in for the second story.
Right. But if you were to park your car and just go all the way to the end, go down if you don't mind.
Down this way?
Toward where your entrance, where you just pointed to?
Yes.
And just went straight toward the building and parked like right there?
Yes.
You'd have to, in essence, walk all the way then, if you don't mind, to right there to get off the
there's a... Is
there another one there?
Yeah, there's another stairwell right there.
Okay.
And there's another stairwell down there. There's 3 stairwells.
Okay. Good. I wanted to make sure of that.
Oh, and And also, there's an elevator if you need to go
Sure.
down in an elevator on that side.
So to tag on to Dwight Robinson's, Councilman Robinson's comment, and I'm getting close to being done, the community center. We have a decent amount of cold weather in Lake Forest during the winter, and we have a decent amount of heat in the summer. I can't tell if it looks like the roof, you probably have glass, is that there, or is
Open.
that completely open too?
It's completely open at this time.
I just think that courtyard would have a decent amount of use. I'm just fearful that it's not going to get as used because of the cool weather, or the hot weather, or the sun. I'm not trying to upsize your scope and putting retractable roofs in and things like that. I'm not gonna go there. I don't know. It just seems like to me that there should be at least an option of, and it looks like it's enclosed enough that if you just put glass on the ceiling and maybe put windows or some kind of something, that it would become enclosed. I mean, it's very close to being enclosed.
Right, we could put, oops, can I have to turn it back? Right now, it is open, this is covered, so when you walk out, you're covered from the elements, but then the center portion is open. That could continue, and it could be glass, but then, we can talk about the maintenance and how you're going to, you're going to have window washers and, it's all those type things that we can talk about. We've talked about it in our meetings and all those. So if it is a decision, we can definitely get into the mechanics of how to make that an enclosed space. The structure is there, the architecture is there to receive something like that, so that's a comment or a decision that we would take if that's how that building should be received. Because right now, you can close it off at both ends with these big sliders, and it's closed off at the far end in the pitch, but it just does have that hole up at the top.
Point of clarification, is that the banquet hall?
Yes, that's the center of the community center.
That's where we're supposed to be having our banquets?
No. The banquet this is where you enter into your banquet area, where these doors are. You go in. This is like your pre-function. There's, in your plan, you enter here, and there's big vestibules in here before you go into your pre-function area. This is just like an open courtyard when you walk in.
Well, I think we're going to get a lot of use out of the courtyard.
Not on rainy
We're
days.
excited about it. It'd
Yeah.
be like a pre-function, and yes, if it's enclosed, it would be an all-weather enclosure. So.
I've been to Costco, and somehow these birds get in there, and everyone's like, the birds. And so with this, with this opening, I think I'm not trying to maybe necessarily give a point, but I think there's enough openings that we would have birds and things, wildlife potentially. It's just an observation.
No, duly noted.
And then I think the only other thing is the parking. I think you're going to have a lot of people wanting that underground, the underground, or whatever you want to call it, parking. And I don't know if we're able to, get some shade, or I know that probably would be expensive. I don't know if solar would cover it. I know I'm upsizing. Not necessarily wanting
And we
to,
can certainly
but
talk about that. We're going to get into energy savings and things like that with the energy company and all that. And I know before we've talked about putting in, parking structure canopies in certain areas that also have photovoltaic that generate, some type of very minute, because they're not that big, but if anything, you can get something like maybe your landscape lighting or something like that won't light all your buildings, but that, you work in cooperation with them, and, they kind of help with the savings and the money to put those things in. So that's a migration that we're going into design development, into those type of details.
We're all getting spoiled. You see El Toro High School, and you see like they now have shaded parking, their whole parking lot almost.
Right.
And it's solar, so I don't know, I just had to mention it. All right. Dr. Garner.
Could you show us the campus master plan? Get that up on the screen. It's on my thing. It's
Leave it at the landscaping, or
no, not that one.
you want this one or the landscape one? Dr. Gardner.
Well, actually, that one's okay, but it also applies to the other one. I think it would help everybody, but let me say, at least it would help me, if this schemata was smaller and it gave us a better idea of what the surroundings are. Where's the Serrano thing going to come in? Where's the creek? Where's Dimension? It's a little bit hard to see this in the situation. So
Contextually,
yeah. So the next time, although that's good to look at, the context would help us understand better, because I don't write it as the mayor does, so I'm much less aware of what's going on. For me, the insides are more important than the outsides. So at some point, I want to see the inside, because that's where people live.
absolutely.
Yeah. I have some concerns about the outside. I like it, but honestly, I don't love it. For example, the senior center, that slide 16, that's a lot of brick, and it's all the same color. It just doesn't grab me. Or this one, you could stop on that one. Yeah, that one. All those roofs, that looks so industrial. I'm not saying, I don't know what to recommend, different colors, but that looks pretty bad. Anybody looking down on that looks very industrial. The next slide of the senior center.
Before you go on to that, though, I don't think, and your staff can definitely opine on this, I just don't think you're going to have a view like that. That's going to be a drone view.
Oh, okay.
Solely.
All right. There's no higher areas that you're looking down at.
You might be able to from the top of the end of Indian Ocean, but I think the trees and stuff, I don't know if
In the
it's
apartment or the houses that they're building there, they're not going to be at a higher level?
This is a higher.
The houses will be at a higher level. They won't be as high
But
as
as high
that
as that,
perspective.
yeah.
Okay. So
And
nobody
they're-
else is going to see this?
Well, not from that
Yeah,
perspective.
So
Doesn't
like
matter.
you said, next time we'll bring contextually, but then we'll also add a plan that actually takes the elevations of
Oh, yeah,
different places,
in that
and
way.
then we'll shoot it from there,
Okay.
because the computer can do that.
So disregard the roofs, then. Nobody's going to see them, who cares? It's just a little bland to me. I don't love it. I mean, it looks okay, but I don't love it. Maybe that I'm the only one that doesn't love it. And that's an awful lot of stone, and the color of the siding matches the stone. And does anybody else? Does everybody love it, and I'm just the only one here who doesn't love it?
Dr. Gardner, we want you to love it as much
No,
as you
no.
do.
If I'm the only one that doesn't love it, then the hell with me. But if,
in selecting these, we are still, again, being in schematic design, we really haven't gotten to the level of picking exactly what materials are going to go where. So these are sort of placeholders, but we look forward to the broad discussion we're going to have with the community groups and with staff, and selecting just the right kinds of stones and colors and textures that we're going to apply to the building. And
many of the other buildings look really good, like the community center looks really good. I thought the senior center just didn't.
Councilmember Gardner, I would also like to note that The architectural theme, the craftsman theme, is also what's being reflected here, and that's something that was provided to Carrier Johnson at the very beginning of their
No, yeah, as a matter of fact,
their scope of services.
I know that scheme very well, but that scheme is not as stony and as matchy as this one.
Is that a technical term, matchy? I'm going to write that down.
Yes, Ms. Ackerman, it's a planning, it's one of our code for planning. Yeah, and again, I'm just personal comments. And everybody covered everything else with the solar and the roofs and the parking. But again, I'm as anxious, or maybe more anxious, to see the insides and how we're doing that as the outside. But a very good job. I mean, everybody's excited. And I showed some of these schemes to a group of seniors about a week or so ago, and about 100 seniors at a meeting. They were extremely excited. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner, for that comment. And just a note about the stone. We are starting to look at many different samples, and as Rena and the team can attest to, we've been carrying pounds and pounds of stone. The desks are just covered with all this variety of stones, so we'll definitely have a variety to show you in the next meetings.
Before you leave, John, I actually, for one, like the mountainous kind of open beams with the rock, and that it makes it, I think it'll tie in well with the landscape. That being said, one of our parks had just had wheelchair access, stroller access to a park, ADA, and you mentioned the zigzagging down to the bike trail. There are people that use strollers on that, the big wheel, and so for bikes and stuff, that zig down and walk down the hill. I'm in a wheelchair, I'm on city council, and if I want to go down to the trail, I hope that you guys will include some kind of access for bikes and strollers and wheelchairs.
You know, I have another question on page 20. I didn't write it down. I forgot. I think the lower level parking, it looks like there's a little step off from, like, the ground level. I'm sorry.
That's just artistic interpretation.
Okay.
There isn't. Yeah, it's just how we blocked out from the computer program. We just blocked it off, and the computer itself gave it the little the step. But there isn't. Like.
Okay, I was just going to say it's going to be tough for people and trips, and I just okay.
No.
So as long as it's level-ish.
Yes, it will be
Okay.
level.
Okay.
Before you walk away from that podium, I just want to quickly say that I had several questions. However, I don't particularly enjoy the sound of my own voice through the microphone, so I asked the staff, and they addressed it. So that all said, great job. You folks make up a great team. The presentation was great. I'm sure it'll be even greater next time. Just keep up the good work. Thank you so much. And again, thank you. Thank you all, every single one of you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor Hamilton, if I may. So, again, what we're looking for tonight is specific comments that you have on the schematic plan. So if there is something you would like us to look at in the next phase of design, it would be very helpful if you could make that part of your motion. So we're very clear. You know, we've heard a lot of information from you, but we want to be very clear about what the council wants us to do in the next phase. If there's something you want us to research or rethink or just focus on, please let us know that. Secondly, we'd like to have your authorization to proceed to the next level of design, which is design development. As Linda mentioned, we do plan to do another series of public meetings where we would take this and spend some time with our Park and Rec Commission to go through the activities that we are envisioning for this space, as well as to get their feedback. We did email those who signed up for our interest list, and we let them know about this meeting. We would also let them know about that Parks and Rec Commission meeting. We'd also like to have another session with our Senior Advisory Board to also get their additional input. Now, the materials we provided to you for tonight's meeting included some of the rendering. It included the computer modeling of the site. It also included the floor plans. So if you have any comments on the floor plans, it also would be very helpful if you could provide those to us tonight.
Do you have any?
I thought we were going to go over them in this session, so yes, I do, and I can't give them to you tonight. So,
Yes, please do. You can't give
I
them?
can't, no, but I will get them to you. But it's nothing that you have to have tonight. I mean, it's nothing that's urgent.
Okay, that's fine. We can
Yeah, I thought
take that under
we were going to do everything tonight.
We did not include the floor plans in the presentation, but they were attached to your staff report, and so our intention was that we would receive those comments from you. But if you have further comments, you could share them. What really would be helpful for us, though, is if the council, as part of your motion, if there is something specific, so if it's solar or whatever it is you want us to focus on in this next phase, it's extremely helpful if that's part of your motion.
The only thing, I shared your concern about that open. It's cute, it's trendy, I know it's good, but it's not raining right now, but the wind is going to get in, the birds are going to get in. I think we're going down we'll regret that, although it sounds like a good idea. That's the only real concern I had. And in the interiors, I had some things, this might be moved here, but nothing substantial. So, and as I understand it, with Councilman Robinson's comments, we are going ahead with the energy stuff. So with all that in mind, I think we could go ahead. I'll make the motion to...
So if I could clarify, I believe what you're asking us to do is to come back during the next phase of design with some options for the roof, the concept for the roof for the community center.
Well, yes, and also, again, the more information about the energy-saving components, and I think those were the only two concerns.
Yeah, from my perspective, those two, so the solar part, especially the photovoltaic, shade structures and that second level parking, and looking at those as options. I think the third thing would just be to get a little bit more clarification on the council chambers opening to create a larger potential seating venue there. So just those three as options, and what we'd be looking at from a cost perspective and all those sorts of things. I think that's kind of what we're looking at right now. I don't share the same level of concern about the open air part, but I think it'd be interesting to take a look. I look at the structure of that, and I think, there's no HVAC area. It's just an open building, so you put glass in there, it's still going to be warm unless you put in some sort of air conditioning system, and it could be cold in the winter unless you put in some heating system and things like that. So it's I'm sure we wouldn't be the first to have something like that where, okay, how do you deal with potential birds or pests or anything like that? And there are ways of alleviating those concerns, but looking at it as an option, I'd be open to that for sure. So,
yeah, I also would be open to the seeing an option for, I don't want to say 400 exactly, but I mean, I think Franklin, Mr. Choco was, has a good point. If we're almost there, and it's not going to, I don't know. I just don't.
Something you remind me, something came up during one of the sessions, I forget which one it was, but we're shooting for an ordinary sound system. We're not shooting for top-notch performing arts center with top-notch acoustics. We're more for a mitzvah, kinds of things, than a chamber concert thing. So several people at least two of the meetings I was at were worried that we weren't doing that, and I know it became a cost thing. I'm just wondering, or maybe now we don't even have to pursue it, but is the cost of making it a first-class acoustic thing, is that millions of dollars, or is it tens of thousands of dollars, or?
It's definitely greater than tens of thousands of dollars. We have a theater consultant that is part of our team for you, and we've had that discussion with him. He basically said, his question to us was, do they want a theater or do they want a performing arts venue? Because there is a difference. Is there going to be like a symphony and, big plays and things like that? Because the audio and the acoustics are totally different, just even to the point of the rake of the floor, how I'm going to design this whole thing, and that's millions of dollars. Or do they want a performance venue that will have, non-high performance activities, which would be, a play, not necessarily music to the high level, something that's more a step up from, how can I say, a theatrical event, okay? So the thing is, and the answer was,
The latter.
We're not going to the theater, the symphony hall kind of thing.
It's the latter.
Because it would definitely take a different architectural character. It would not, even by making it a multiple use for you, because we have the council chambers, the movement of that, down to where he was saying we would, have the platform for the council chambers, the dais, he had ideas, and Thousand Oaks has it actually, where we would move it down. There would be like in a platform, and then it would turn into the stage, and it would come out of the way because you need more room, you need more this, and we're like, and we reviewed it with staff. We talked about it, and we said, we're going to make a good place for a performance venue, but we're not going to turn it into Symphony Hall.
And Mayor Hamilton, we did look at, when we were in the conceptual design phase, we looked at trying to site a 200-seat venue here. And essentially, we ran out of room, combined with, it required a two-story, it required like a balcony level and then lower level seats. And it started to become a real cost issue. And so we decided, okay, let's start at schematic design with the 200 seats, see what reaction we get. But we did look at trying to accommodate those seats in the interior, and it just started to get cost prohibitive.
Because I guess I'm a little torn. I know we're getting close to 10:30. I guess I'm getting a little torn on, we all want to be cost conscious. We're not looking for like the Newport Beach Taj Mahal. At the same token, are we going to have to turn back money from some of the developers? What is our what's our budget?
No, we're not going to turn back any money from developers. We're going to keep every dime. You're going to have to design and come up with a budget first, and then we can go through the cash flow and cash flow model and tell you exactly where you're at and how much you have to spend.
How's it looking right now?
It's looking, with the current or the one that Cummings helped Carrier Johnson with was in the $55 to $60 million range, and that wasn't with all the soft costs and everything else, and we've kind of added that up as a staff, just, back of a napkin type. We're in the ballpark.
Okay. So I think you had a motion. Help me out with the additional.
Those three things. Yes, those three things. So we are going to, I think what I'm hearing you say is you'd like to move on to the next phase of design, but you would like us to look at the roof of the community center to give some options, to come back with the energy-saving items that could be introduced to the project, such as solar, photovoltaic, and somehow trying to achieve covered parking on that second level, if we could do that through those means. And then look at the council chamber and an opening that would expand the seating as an option for your consideration.
California Oaks, and a wheelchair ADA or stroller way down to the bike path.
You accept those in your motion? Okay, I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any discussion? Let's cast our votes.
And the second thing you want is,
That motion carries unanimously.
she wanted three things.
I think that covers all of it. It was the authorization to progress to design development phase, which was wrapped into that.
Right. I'm assuming you're moving staff recommendation, and the additional direction you're giving us in that first one are the 5 items that I listed. So it's staff recommendation and those 5 items. Thank you. And before we move on, I just want to note, our IT consultant is here in the audience. He's the one responsible, if you want to wave, since he's stayed here till 10:30. I wanted to recognize him. But also, we are designing the technology that goes along with these facilities, along with the schematic design. And so you approved his contract back in March, and so he has been fully engaged with this project as well.
You know, one more thing, we didn't get any comments at all on the rooms layout that you...
No, but I do understand that Dr. Gardner is going to give me some input. But no, wait, I didn't receive any comments on the floor plans that were attached to the staff report.
Would it behoove us to maybe add that to an agenda item in 2 weeks, and that we'd all have that on our radar at that time?
That would be at the discretion of the council.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'll second that. If that was a motion, I'll second.
Well, I'm trying to see if folks think it's a good idea.
I think that's a good idea. I don't think the staff really needs to do any more reports. It's really
Yeah, so just one sentence. Yep.
Yep.
All right, you have consent. 5-member consent. Which leads us to number 17, closed session minutes. And it's 10:30.
I move for us to continue.
I'll second.
I almost say, is this in any rush? I've heard, talking to the...
We have one more item with the Civic Center project, and that's the Bernard's contract.
All right.
Agenda item 16A, First Amendment to the agreement with Bernard's Brothers for Civic Center construction management.
Take a vote, sir?
Yeah, we do need to take a vote on that motion.
All right, so do we have a motion on that one?
Yes.
Oh, wait, you're...
I think Andrew's...
So wait, hold on a second. Okay, let's decide now if we're going to continue on past 10:30, and I will make a motion that we continue on.
There's already a motion and a second.
But how would you like to amend that motion to be only for agenda item 16, and then we move 17 to the next council meeting? Is that any rush?
I think 17 is pretty fast. I don't think there's a lot of discussion on that.
Andrew, 17, we postponed it to tonight. It'll be 2 minutes.
All right, let's go for it then. We have a motion second. Cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously.
All right. Bernard.
All right, the next phase with the Civic Center project, Deborah was going over design, schematic design tonight. There's kind of 2 parts to this, and the other part is the first construction phase of the Civic Center project, which is rough grading the site, extending Indian Ocean Drive, and related installation of utilities. Currently, that is under the development agreement with Serrano Summit and IRWD. That is the owner's responsibility, so that is their responsibility. But there is a self-help provision in there that will allow us to do those 3 things ahead of time, and then we would get reimbursed for them. So this is what we're doing with Bernard's contract, is we're adding that scope of work into it. So we're taking the self-help provision in the developer agreement, and we're moving in that direction so we can get our site going first. Otherwise, we would wait until the owner, which is IRWD or a developer that would they sell it to, we would have to wait until they started it and graded it for us, put in Indian Ocean, and then we could start construction on our pad. So what we're doing is trying to go first in the self-help provision. We still have to bring you back a DA amendment with the self-help provision. That's going to come back at a future council meeting to clarify what self-help is and who's responsible for what. But in the end, if with Bernard's extending additional scope on Bernard's contract, we will be reimbursed. We will take the lead on building Indian Ocean, grading our pad. We will be reimbursed by the owner for that stuff. We're just going to have to cash flow it up front and then get reimbursed on the back end. So that's what Bernard's new scope of work is and the additional money is.
And I've forgotten already, having read the staff report, is it all the way through, or are we just going in a little section that we need to build on Indian Ocean?
It's just the section we need to build Indian Ocean all the way up to, you saw it on the back. It's all of Indian Ocean, I guess, all the way through.
All right. Any members of the public on that one?
And then this would allow us to start construction in January of 2017.
So I'll move staff recommendation. That is refundable from the IRW.
Everything is refundable in that scope and the new dollar amount except for a little, and that deals with the single-deck parking structure, which we added. So that was a new scope of work, and that's the only part of it that's not refundable. That will be paid with the financing fee, the public facilities fees.
I'll move 16A.
Second.
Motion and second, no discussion, cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously.
So now we're on to 17.
Closed session minutes submitted by City Clerk.
Mr. Members of the council, this was placed on the agenda by the council. The staff has nothing further to add, so it'd be the discretion of the council as to what you care to do. I believe this was put on the agenda by Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, just briefly, it seems to me to be bad business practices not to keep minutes, although I have to say, generally speaking, what we decide in closed session comes out the other end, pretty much the way we decided. But there was an incident not so long ago where I thought we had an understanding of what we were going to do, and something completely different came out the other end. Am I allowed to talk about that? Just in case, I'm getting some blank stares here, as if...
Mr. Mayor and Council, we need to be careful with discussion of items discussed in closed session. So we could just keep it general.
So it doesn't matter what happened, but I thought we agreed on something, and something very different happened. So I went to the city attorney and I said, "The hell's going on here?" And he said, "Well, how do you remember it?" And I did check with one other person because I couldn't check with two other people, and I said, "How did you remember it?" And he remembered it more or less the way I remembered it. So, and it honestly doesn't matter. It turned out, from my point of view, better than what we had decided, but I didn't like the idea that what we had decided seemed to me didn't happen the other way. And then there was no recourse to go back to minutes and say, "Hey, look at the minutes. How did this happen?" So I just think it would be a good practice, although rarely needed, at least on the year and a half I've been here, rarely needed, but good nonetheless, to have minutes of the closed sessions, which would then be secret, closed and not open.
So how would you envision this happening? So like the city attorney, or would there be another individual in the room that would take it, and just notes from a meeting, or would it be just votes that are taken?
Just votes, yeah, not notes. I'm not interested, the discussion, he said this, he said that, but when a motion is made or a consensus is made, we will, boom.
Okay, and would you be supportive of the city attorney being the one writing that up, or?
Yeah, he would be the logical one to do that.
Okay, just votes and...
votes or consensus?
Votes and consensus, and the city attorney writes it up, and I could be supportive of that. I'm supportive of that, so if that's a motion, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what you do already?
Mr. Mayor, Council, we take notes of the action that's directed in closed session. Those notes do not become official minutes, and there's no official record. So there would be a difference between what's currently done and what's being proposed here. So there would be a difference in practice. Now, one important note, this item is on minority consensus, and so we would have to bring this back at a future meeting for the official action to direct this to take place in the future.
But in essence, you are writing them down already. It's just, you just formalize them into a minute.
That's
document.
exactly correct. The Brown Act permits the council to request minutes to be taken. There are very specific parameters for how that can occur and how they're kept confidential. What Councilman Gardner has proposed is in line with the Brown Act permission to keep notes from closed session, but they would be confidential. That's also required by the Brown Act.
Okay.
I don't think we have to bring it back because I see it here as an agendized item, and we have a motion and a second. So I believe we can just vote and approve it. I don't think this is a consensus item.
Yes, we can proceed tonight with action. However, the Brown Act requires that this action be taken by ordinance or resolution. So what we can do is bring back a resolution on consent calendar next meeting that makes official the action taken by council if council decides to take that action tonight.
All right, so that would be the motion, what he said.
So really, it's only going to be motions. Is that what you're...
Yeah, I motion to bring back an ordinance to the effect that we will keep notes, we will keep a record of minutes and consensus for closed session meetings from the city attorney.
Well, okay, so I'm getting confused. I thought it was the motion in closed session and the votes. But not minutes.
No, did I say minutes? Oh, no. I meant...
Motion and votes. Motions and votes.
Motions and consensus votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
okay.
minutes.
Not minutes, no.
I'm sorry.
All right, we have a motion now. And I think you seconded. So any other discussion? Seeing none, let's cast our votes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Which leads us to the city manager's report.
Nothing further this evening, Mr. Mayor.
And council comments. Councilman Gardner.
We had the Family Carnival, 25th Anniversary Family Carnival on Saturday, and we had lots of people attended that. And it got me thinking, these 25-year banners that are all over the city, if we have no plans of anything to do with those necessarily, I think it would be nice to, when we're finished with that, and we take them down, for everybody to sign them and give them to people who are keepsakes, the volunteers who helped out at all these events, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than just throw them away, I think that would be a nice way to use all these banners. I don't know if do I need a consensus for that? Yeah, let me ask for a consensus. I don't know what to do with the banners.
I support that, sure.
I don't know. Couldn't that be an administrative decision? 'Cause we're going to have to...
Yeah, okay. Well, no, all right. Yeah, just...
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd like them to do that, and if they don't do it, at least save one for me, and everybody else can worry about their own. Most important, save one for me. The other thing is I wanted to announce that the Diversity Council of Orange County will be having a seminar next Friday at 10 o'clock at the El Toro Public Library called Women in Politics. So in the year of, what's-her-name running for president, Hillary Clinton, that's appropriate. So next Friday, 10 o'clock, El Toro Library, Women in Politics. Seminar with women talking about what women's roles are in politics. And that's it for me.
All right, I'll try to verbalize what I'm trying to say in the quickest fashion I know how. I would like to have a colleague of mine support me so that we can place a couple of items on the agenda. One of them is I'm thinking to have a task force, if you will, for emergency to educate the public, to educate the people about emergency preparedness. And I'll talk more about it if we can just have a placeholder on a future agenda for that. And then the second thing, and I'll articulate when the time comes, and the second thing is I am hoping I can have one of my colleagues support me so we can place on the agenda. I would like to see what the city can do, what we can do, perhaps form a commission or some type of a body to help veterans who live in Lake Forest to adjust to civilian life or whatever that can be done to help them settle and be happy and successful. And again, I'll articulate that when the time comes. Can I look to a colleague to second me on these? I just want placeholders on the agenda. At the time, I'll have representatives who will articulate in the best fashion what my goals are.
On emergency preparedness, I was Deborah Pauly. I guess you guys know.
Yes.
They put on. Is that what Ramon? That's what.
No, actually, I came across somebody who used to train SEALs, and he's been all over the world, and great fellow. And he and I came up with the idea that Lake Forest can really have such a body to help educate people in the case of true emergencies, massive emergencies, pollution to the water supply or act of terrorism, etc., a major earthquake.
She had sponsored a seminar, First Responders, up in North County.
Something of that nature.
And I said, could we get that down here? And she said, why don't you check with the police? They normally do that.
Well, if we can have something on the agenda,
isn't that something we could ask the chief to come back to us?
Well, not at this point. At this point, I'd like it to be on the agenda so we can talk about it and maybe. But I'm open to anything. Anything is better than nothing.
I think Councilman
Don't
Robinson.
let me get too far, because I don't want to engage in this discussion here, but we already have an Emergency Preparedness Academy. We've had probably, 200 people or so go through it here in town, and we've got a list, and they're already actively engaged when events like that happen. I know quite a few people who are on a list, and when something happens, they know what their job is after going through that academy. So I could see a seminar, but I think we already have a lot of what you're talking about. So.
Again, all I'm asking for is someone to come here and make a presentation as to if we want to take it up, we'll take him up on it, free of charge, training us, great. I'll be all for it, but at this point I don't know what else I can say without getting too much into it.
I think the easier thing might be if there's someone that wants to do some training, that you could give that individual's contact name to the staff, and they could see if that person might be someone who could do some training at our Emergency Preparedness Academy. It's something we do at least every year, right? So maybe more than once a year, but at least every year. So, and it's usually, a 6 or 8 week course or something like that.
So I guess it's a no?
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, I think it's already there. I think
it's a good idea, and if you've got somebody with some kind of skills, and give them to the city manager.
So it's a no. I lose 4-1. It's all right. What about the other one? It's not all right, but it is what it is. What about the other one? Do I have somebody to support me?
I've forgotten already what it was.
A commission or a body of able individuals who can help veterans, retired military members, or just something that can help veterans who live in Lake Forest with anything that we can do as a city to help them.
You know, how about if I take your concept and seek consensus for us trying to use our housing funds and schedule a closed session meeting to discuss how we could use our affordable housing funds.
Mr. Mayor, council members, affordable housing, I guess I'm done talking.
All right,
Mr. Mayor, may I-
Councilman
may I,
Robinson.
Affordable housing can be discussed in closed session, but only in the context of properties and the price in terms of payment of those properties. So that discussion will have to happen in open session, but it could happen in open session.
Okay, open session. Wherever, I don't...
Well, I'll take it. It's better than nothing. So 2 minutes ago, I ended up with nothing. So on this one, I'll take this. I'm for it, Andrew. Let's do it.
I guess we just need two?
Yeah, we just need two, yeah. So
Or
we're
do
done.
you want, does three make it better?
No.
All right. Two it is.
Okay, so Dr. Gardner gave us three. So, all right. Thank you. Good night, everybody, and thank you for being here.
Councilman Robinson.
I've attended some Orange County Fire Authority meetings. We've had some special meetings working on labor negotiations, and we're just about there. So I mean, just everything's is there. So I'll give an update at one of the October meetings when I can formulate it. So, but other than that, hope you all have a good evening. Thanks a lot.
I attended the 25th anniversary at the Lake Forest Sports Park with great turnout. It was a great event. You know, it's a milestone that we're 25 years into being a city, and we've got such great things going on in the city, and we're on the verge of having our own civic center with senior center included. So Lake Forest is doing well, and I attended last week's vector control, and mosquito season is over. 80s mosquitoes were caught in Mission Viejo and Lake Forest, and they found that they were coming from a garden club in Mission Viejo, in the lilies, and so it wasn't your garden, but it was something that we averted without any chemical spraying or that. We did spot training in areas where they were found in North Orange County to knock down the 80s mosquitoes before they became epidemic. 7 people actually came in contact with West Nile from outside the area, so it wasn't mosquito-borne transmission. So the mosquito season is on the downturn. They don't expect any big outbreaks anymore. So that's a good success. Miami just reported that they are Zika free. They had a Zika outbreak, and they knocked that down with aerial spray in Miami. So the Zika mosquitoes, which were the 80s mosquitoes that carried Zika in Miami, were exterminated, and they now claim that Miami is Zika free. Nothing further.
You know, thanks for everybody sticking around. Hopefully we get out of here before 11. I think it's before 11. And great carnival, the 25th anniversary. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Loved seeing like all the exhibitions and nonprofits. Good band. Lots of good things going on in the city. So happy 25th anniversary. And I think I'd like to close tonight in memory of those who lost their lives on 9/11. That was between our last meeting and this meeting. It was the 15th anniversary. We've had opportunities, or rather we've had events occur on the anniversary of 9/11, I think at least 2 different years. So we made it through another year safe, and it's amazing that freshmen in high school weren't born yet. You know, we're born after 9/11. It's just, it's really an amazing thing how much time has gone, and you just there's a whole almost generation now that hasn't been a part of it and known really much or experienced it. So with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thanks for everybody coming tonight.